Hello, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining tonight's show on the discussion. Tonight we have Tom Leeds, who is an atheist, and he's going to discuss atheism. What is atheism and everything about it, its values, if it has any, whether it has any values or not. We're going to talk about it
Oh,
and what led Tom down the road. First of all, how you doing, man? How have you been? It's been a while since we spoke live on camera.
well, I had taken a break from voicing my opinions and views. I thought I had got out, but then TikTok comes along and it's like, well, here's another platform. Let me start spouting off my thoughts.
Mm. Okay. I remember last time, I think it was last year, early last year, I was steel manning a Christian position, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know if you remember that. I was acting like a hardcore
Yes,
Christian,
yes.
and
You very nearly had me convinced that you believed the things you were saying. And I was like,
yeah,
it's some crazy stuff, but I know people who believe crazy stuff like this. You
right,
reminded me of my
exactly.
cousin.
Yeah, you were telling me that yeah, and a lot of Christians said that I did a poor job. I made it look absurd or whatever, but I was just kind of like parroting what I've always heard from different discussions with religious people, Christian or not. So I was just doing my best to do that. And if it convinced you that I was being
Yeah,
sincere,
I
then I
was
must have been doing it.
I was like, it's almost too good to be true. It's like this is such a caricature of a Christian.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So look, let's jump right into it. In your view, I mean, people mean different things when they talk about these labels like theism, atheism, things like that. In your view, what do you think the most common usage of the word these days are? Like, what does it mean to be an atheist?
Well, to most Christians, Christians have this view that atheist is somebody who actively denies God, actively doesn't believe, intentionally says God isn't real. When the reality is, most atheists are just people who've looked at religion and found it absurd and said, no, that makes absolutely no sense. To me, atheism is the ultimate position of saying, I don't know, and I'm not going to believe something just to believe in something.
Right, right. So it's sort of what they may call an agnostic atheist.
Yeah. Well, to me, everyone is agnostic. At least
Just
anyone that is honest is agnostic. Because agnosticism
yeah.
is knowledge. You either know God is real or you don't know God is real. And anyone who claims to know God is real, to me, is either lying outright or just lying to themselves. Because how can
Mhm.
you know what God is unless God speaks to you? And if God's speaking to you, then there's probably something more going on in here than should be.
Right. Yeah, and I always wondered about that. It's like people talk to God. I know when I was very, very religious as a religious Christian, I used to pray all the time. I never got a voice to talk back. Like that relationship was just a one-way street. It's kind of like eventually it just felt like I was talking to myself. And this was for years. And I was always looking for a sign, like some kind of answer, but prayers were answered probably at the rate of 50-50. So I could never figure out if it was just my imagination, or whether there was this God who was just kind of playing the hide and seek game with me to test me, or it would just drive me crazy, especially in times of where I needed answers about certain things in life and I didn't know what to do. So I'd always turn to God. And I don't know. And then I would always sort of justify it, or some of the elders in my church would justify it and say, well, even no answer is kind of an answer. It's God's will, you know, thy will be done. If it's not happening for you, it's because God doesn't want to happen. He's going to do what he wants to do. And I just would walk away thinking, well, what the fuck am I wasting time praying for? If it's all about his will, why don't we skip the praying part and just get to his will anyways, right? Just stuff like that just used to fuck with me.
I've often said that, prayer is basically you telling God that he doesn't know what he's doing. God's got a
Yeah,
perfect plan, and
right,
please, God, will you change your plan for me?
right.
It's basically how
Like
prayer
George
is. It's like,
Carlin.
I'm not sure you're doing your job, so here, let me give you some instructions on what you should be doing.
Yeah. What's the point of having a fucking divine plan if any asshole with a 2-bit, prayer book can come along and fuck up your plan, you know? You know, what's he supposed to do? Change his plan just for you, you know? And yeah, it's just it gets to be an absurd thing, and it starts to look like some shit that people just made up,
Yeah.
and it makes God into this genie type of thing where he's just out there to answer your wishes. What's the difference?
Find your keys.
Yeah, God will help you get a parking spot, at the grocery store. It's like very, and God has to worry about whether you get that job, meet this, partner in life, all these
Win,
things that people
win
ask
the football
for.
game.
Yeah, who wins the football game, you know,
This the scariest thing to me about religious belief and God answering prayers and what have you is this idea. It's like survival. Um, God was watching out for me. I was in this horrible car accident. Several people were killed, but I came out unscathed. God was looking out for me and protecting me. Like, really? My God would have kept me from getting in the car accident. And what makes you so special that God saved you but killed some other people?
right,
I mean,
right. Just a lot of opens up a lot of
that belief is,
questions. Yeah, it just it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I've come from that into, a really strong atheist. I used to be just this angry atheist. I felt like I was bullshitted, so much for so long. And then I sort of, tried to find this spiritual or psychological center where I could kind of like be at peace with the mysteries of life and kind of look at, you know, some sort of the same sort of thing, but that could kind of fill that, Jesus sized hole in my heart or whatever it was. And what I've come to find out is that it doesn't really matter as long as, you don't have to be a nihilist. But what are your thoughts? I've heard a lot of Christians say that, like, if you don't believe in God, then you don't have meaning in life. Like,
yeah.
if you're going to just die after 80 years, then what's the point? You
What's
might
the
as well kill
point?
yourself now.
Yeah, and if there's a perfect heaven waiting for you, why are you wasting your time down here?
Right.
Mm,
Well, it's a
yeah,
test, right?
yeah. I like that loophole. I can't kill myself to go to heaven because if I kill myself, then I won't go to heaven.
Right.
How convenient.
You have to,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, most Christians, they say atheists are materialistic. They only care about material things. They only care
Mhm.
about the here and now. Like, well, the here and now is all that's available to me, so I guess that's true. But having meaning in your life. It's like, what's the meaning in your life if you're dedicating yourself to a God you can't interact with, that you've only been told about? I mean, my ex, she's dedicating herself to God, and it's like, why? I mean, I dedicate myself to my daughter. Um, my life has tremendous meaning because I've got friends and family that I care about and care about me, and I enjoy life and I enjoy doing things, and I don't
Mhm.
need to have some greater meaning.
Mm.
I'm much more comfortable. If I'm good to you and you're good to me, and I do what I can to help society and be good to society and fulfill my role as being a productive member of society, why do I need more? What
Right. Well,
you know
I kind of look at it like, it's kind of like we're all going to hope, if you've got a job and you've been working at it for years, you may retire, you're going to retire one day. Well, if you're going to retire, then why even go to work? That's kind of like the argument they're making. It's like,
yeah,
why work if you're just going to retire anyways? It's
yeah,
like, no, it's like if you go, if I watch a concert, well, the concert's going to end. So why watch it? It's just going to end anyways.
Yeah.
So what's the
Why
meaning of
make
watching it? Well,
why make your bed if you're just gonna get in it next few hours and
yeah,
mess it up again?
exactly. Exactly.
That's my
Exactly.
religion. I never make my bed.
You're not listening to Jordan Peterson, man. You
Oh my
should be
God,
making your bed.
he's one of those people who makes sense on the surface.
Hmm.
It's like he starts out, going, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah," and then he starts getting into it, like, "Oh my God, this guy is insane. This guy is like, he's a madman. He's able to twist people's brains up so badly," and that's true of most intelligent people. I mean, Frank Turk is another one, just extremely intelligent. But in my opinion, they use that intelligence for evil because
Yeah.
they're causing hardships and distrust and people that have negative feelings.
Hmm.
They're not benefiting society. I don't know what they're doing. They're
Here's an argument. Now I will kind of play the religious person for just a second, like we did last time. But you brought up evil, so some people, like especially these presuppositionalist apologists, will make this argument. They'll say, "Well, how do you know the difference between evil and good, or what's possible, what's impossible, without some primary, eternal referent that we call God? Like, if there's no God, how would you know? What are you grounding your knowledge of anything in? Everything seems to be, because if we're just a product of the natural world, like say evolution, which is a blind process, they'll say, then that means every thought that you make about good, evil, possible, impossible are just the product of blind forces in nature. Whereas under my theistic worldview, I have God who gives me revelation naturally in my heart. I know what's right and wrong
yeah,
in my heart. Like Romans
eh,
says, how would you answer such a
yeah.
question?
What they have is magical thinking. They have this
Hmm.
good force, which is God. This bad force is the devil. Though, if you read the Bible, how many people has God killed? Like
Yeah, millions.
everybody.
Yeah,
How many people has the devil killed?
like
I
10,
think it was like one.
7.
I
Yeah,
don't. Yeah.
Job's kids or whatever.
To me,
But
evil
it was under
is
his
yeah,
direction, right?
yeah. To me, evil's doing intentional harm. There's no evil spirits. There's no demons. There's no There's no demonic presence. That kind of evil is magical thinking. That's make believe. That's in your head. Um,
Hmm.
and like I say, good and evil don't actually exist. They are not tangible things. You cannot create evil, but evil things happen. Because people, either for mental illness or just bad intentions, they do things that we consider evil. But
So how do you
uh,
know
uh,
it's evil from an atheistic, like, first of all, is atheism a worldview? Is it like something that we can sort of ground other views in?
atheism is one thing. It is a response to the claim that there is a God. If nobody
Hmm.
says there's a God, there is no atheism. Atheism only exists as a response to somebody
Hmm.
else's claim. I didn't wake
Gotcha.
up and say, "Oh, I don't think God is real. I guess I'm an atheist."
Hmm.
Because until you know what God is, until you hear what God is, and until people explain to you what God is, you can't be an atheist because you
Hmm.
have nothing to base your atheism on.
Hmm.
So if there's no thought that there's a great presence in the sky, there is no atheism.
Hmm.
So it's not a worldview. It's a reaction.
It's a reaction
I
to
mean,
a claim, a truth claim.
yes, yes.
Yeah, and and that's what I would say too, is that what we call truth are properties of claims. So first of all, it would seem like they would need to define what they mean by God in order for us to even
Well,
evaluate.
but even on a more simple level, I mean, religion is basically an organized version of believing in God. You
Hmm.
know, if you have one person believe in God, they're just a theist. But if several people believe in the same, the same God, it becomes a religion. Now,
Hmm.
atheism, you can't decide to be an atheist, but you can decide to be a theist. You can look around you and think, oh, something bigger, something with some forethought must have created all of this.
Hmm.
Boom, you're a theist. You can't go around and saying, oh, I'm looking at everything and I see everything must have been created, but I don't believe in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
An atheist
Right.
is somebody who looks around and says, oh, this is really cool. Wow, I'm really glad this is here. And that's the end of it. A theist is
Hmm.
somebody who says, oh, look at all this amazing things. Something must have put it here just for me.
Mm. Right. 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 So it's kind of like an attribution, something we attribute to things, but it like atheism isn't necessarily attributing existence to
It,
anything.
yeah,
It's just
it's
saying that
it's just
it's cool that it's
accepting what
here.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what is
you
right,
know,
right. That's interesting.
as an atheist, we just accept. We see the things around us and like, oh, this is good, and I can use this and do that, and I wonder how it got here.
Hmm.
That's an atheist question, and then they do the work to figure
Right,
out how they got there. They don't decide
right,
something magical happened.
right. Because they don't have access to ontology, which is the about what is, like the attribution of what it is that created everything. I mean, hey, in science, we've got all these different models. You've got these folks that talk about what the Penrose cyclical universe. Um, you've got Michio Kaku and Sean Carroll that talk about string theory, and you've got um, all of these different. What is it? The amplituhedron hypothesis, which is a mathematical structure that is behind even quantum field theory. And so you've got all these competing things, but at least these sort of models are scientific.
Yeah,
They're based on what exists,
yeah,
but they're still not sure about what is. It's just
yeah,
an open question.
yeah. I mean, there's basically two ways of looking at things. The scientific way of looking at things is realizing it's there and trying to discover how they came to be here, and the religious way of looking at things, which is creating a source or creating something that created everything else. And here's the
Hmm.
thing, you know, and I'm sure you've heard this analogy before. It's an old one. If you got rid of all books, all knowledge, if you got rid of everything, science and religion would come back.
Hmm.
But science principles would all come back. The same principles would come back. The
Hmm.
same exact different people would figure them out, but the same basic principles would come back. All scientific discoveries that we've made would come back the same as they exist now. Religion,
Mm.
you'd have a whole different pantheon.
Hmm.
You'd have no, Christ would not come back. I mean, if you had a church, if you left all the buildings up with all the scientific equipment and all the religious paraphernalia, just you got rid of all the words and all the knowledge, people would come back, they'd walk into a church and they would create a whole mythology for this guy nailed to a cross on the wall. They would create an entirely new story,
Hmm.
but science would come up with the same solutions and the same facts that existed before.
Right.
You'd have,
A few weeks ago, I had a guest on who was a theist, a Zoroastrian, and we were talking about that. Like, okay, you've got a concept of God, and of course, you've got thousands of different of concepts of God. Everybody's disagreeing, but no one seems to disagree on the fact that gravity works. Like, nobody, doesn't matter what religion you are, we pretty much all can agree that if I hold up this rock and let go, it's going to fall to the ground every time. Like, there's no, question about that. And it seems like that is a more um certain way. It's kind of, I don't know if it's complete certainty, but it's at least you have something we can all agree on and we can all replicate. And so it's a way of distinguishing between imagination and reality. Like, there's
yeah,
got to be some kind of method to
yeah,
it, like
yeah, yeah.
that we
The
can
difference
test.
between science, the difference between science and religion, gravity. If you drop a rock and it falls, the scientific view is must be some force that's pulling that rock down towards the ground. The religious point of view is there must be something grabbing that rock
Hmm.
and pulling it down.
Right.
Some sort of fairy, some sort of some sort of being.
Right. And how would you test that? Like, how would they go about
Exactly.
testing that? You.
Exactly. It's basically the religious viewpoint is you can't test it and you can't question it. You must accept it. You must have
Hmm.
faith that it is true. And if you don't
Hmm.
have faith, you're going to hell. So why
Nice.
do people believe in God? Let's see. Why do people believe in God? Because they are raised told if you don't believe in God, you'll go to hell. That's a
Hmm.
pretty strong influence. I
Right.
mean, the argument for the loving God, but if you don't believe, you're going to hell. You have free will. You have free choice to believe or not believe. If you believe, you go to heaven and you spend eternity with God. And if you don't believe, you go here.
Hmm.
But the choice is yours. You're free to make the choice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the dirty mob boss. Like, I could break your legs right now if you don't, you know, if you don't give me what I want. But if I do that, it was your choice.
Yeah,
I had, you chose to do that, which which is interesting because it kind of gets into the area of free will. I know that this doesn't have anything necessarily to do with atheism or theism, since there are theists that don't believe in free will, and there's a lot of theists that do believe in free will. Same with atheists, so it kind of doesn't have anything to do with it. But a few weeks ago, the same guy we were talking about, his argument was free will kind of proves God exists somehow. Have you ever heard this sort of argumentation before?
oh yeah, free will always proves God exists because God gave you free will.
Mhm.
And they can't really describe what free will is. They can't
Mhm.
really explain how free will works. They just know that they have it.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those people where I believe thinking animals have a certain amount of free will, but
Mhm.
overall we really don't.
Right.
Because 99.9% of our actions is all a reaction to something else. I mean,
Right.
from the
Right.
time we
Right.
wake up in the morning, the actions of other people and the actions of the weather and the actions of animals and the actions of just so many different things lead us to every decision we make. In the final analysis, we make that last finite decision to go left
Mhm.
or right. But even then,
Mhm.
it's most of the time there's a bus there, so I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way. Did I
Yeah.
choose to go this way? Yes, I chose to go this way. Why did I choose that? Because there was a bus here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
did I really choose it?
Yeah. It was
I
within a
chose I chose
context.
not to get hit by the bus.
Yeah. It's kind of like
So
what we were discussing, that we are all kind of enslaved to our wants. Like, if we want to live, then we're gonna move right to
yeah,
escape from the bus coming down the street.
yeah,
Um, and even if you said, "Well, I'm gonna prove there's free will. I'm just not gonna make a choice at all." Well, even
yeah,
that's a choice, which is a reaction
yeah,
to
yeah,
you wanting to prove some point, right? So
yeah,
it seems like it's inescapable. But I kind of go
yeah,
with you on that because, in a sense, we do consciously um have this ability to work towards what we want, right? We may not have a choice of wanting what we want, but unless we're coerced by someone else or we're physically, you know held down, then we do have the choice to move one way or the other. And
yeah,
but at the end of the day, I guess it's sort of doesn't really make any difference,
yeah,
because it's sort of just a talking point that
yeah,
sounds good on the religious side, if they're arguing that way.
yeah.
So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
my I've used this before. My argument for free will. Imagine if water molecules had thought, and you
Hmm.
got a flowing river, and uh, molecule of water wants to get from one side of the river to the other side of the river. They can do that. but the onslaught of all the other water molecules is going to push them so far down the river. They'll make it to the other side, but it'll be miles, miles, and miles down the river, because
Hmm.
even though they decided to do something, they can't just do something. There's so many things that are pushing you in a direction that may or may not be the direction you want to go. So you can make lots of incremental little, like, nudging towards what you want,
Hmm.
but the chance of you getting to where you want to be is pure chance.
Gotcha. So, welcome, Alejandro. This is the Zoroastrian I was speaking to a few weeks ago, talking about free
Hello.
will.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to bring him on so he could actually share his thoughts on that since he wanted to call in and do that. So, what do you think, Alejandro, of what you heard so far?
Well, what I heard is people who don't know what they're talking about and celebrating it, which is just a very fashionable thing to do these days. We can start with the definition of God and go from there if you want to build up, which I think probably be the most sensible way. Did you want to start there, or did you want to start with free
Okay.
will?
Definition
Or
of God.
okay,
Are you going to provide, or are you asking?
I'm asking. I
Oh,
mean, clearly you don't believe in God, so you have to know what you don't believe in. That'd be
well,
fair.
I know what I've been told, and I've been told a myriad of different things,
Okay, so
from
you don't
pantheism
know.
to a multiple gods to a monotheist God. So God is described millions upon millions of different ways.
That's
So
great. I
God is a
really appreciate
concept.
it, but that doesn't answer the question. You're telling me you don't believe in God. So what is it you don't believe in? And let's go there.
Don't believe any of the stories about a God.
Okay, you don't believe
I, I
any.
don't I don't believe I let me put it this way. I don't believe there's a need for a God.
Okay, have you told me what God is?
I don't know what God is,
Okay, so you don't know
because
what God is, but you're sure he doesn't exist.
no, I did not say that.
What are you saying
Right,
then?
I
right.
said I have no need for there to be a God.
I get that, but
I don't
you
I
don't.
don't I don't I don't disbelieve that there is a God, because I
Uh-huh.
don't know. I don't
Okay, so
disbelieve in something I don't know what it is. I just find no reason to believe any of the stories I've been told about what God is,
okay.
and I find no reason for there to be a God. There's no
Okay, well,
purpose for a
you
God.
keep circling back. You're like, okay, well, I don't see a reason to believe in
Well, you
God.
well you're saying I
Great.
you're saying
What
that
is
I
God?
don't even know
I don't
what I
know.
don't believe in.
Right.
You're
That's
saying that I
evidence so
don't know
far.
what I don't believe in, and I don't not believe in God. I've never said that.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I
He's
Okay,
don't
an
so
believe the
agnostic.
claims.
He,
I
you
don't
don't
believe
believe
the claims that there
the
is a God,
claims.
and I
Okay, well,
find no reason to
okay,
believe that
okay,
there's a God.
okay. Well, you've
It's a
said the
big
same thing
difference.
like three different ways now. Okay,
No, I've said it the
let
same
let
way each time.
right. You said the same thing. I don't see a reason to believe in God. I don't see a need for God. And none
Yes,
of that actually tells me what God is.
God is made up.
Okay, so you're going to argue that God is made up. Is that it?
Well, I'm not arguing. It's clearly made up.
It's
I mean,
clearly made
everyone's
up.
got their own version of what it is.
Okay, so
If God were real, then everyone would have the same explanation. Would say the same thing. Yes?
no,
No?
no, we've
Because
got
what you
people
say
who,
God is,
okay,
I can find a billion other people who will
right,
say something completely different.
right, and we have different cultures and different languages and different
Uh huh.
ideas. And so far from what I'm getting from you is I don't know what God is. People have different ideas. People have different stories. I don't need any of that. Okay, well that's great. That's great. You've heard stories and you've heard contradictory ideas. I get that. People have different opinions. We've got Jews, Christians, Muslims, Zoroastrians,
Yes.
Scientologists, and a zillion other different creeds. I get that. Okay, but you're telling me you have no need for God. You're also telling me you don't know what those things are. All you know is what you've been told. So what does that tell me? That doesn't tell me anything.
Here's what it tells you.
Okay,
If there is a
right,
God,
right.
I've never been convinced of its existence. If
Okay,
there isn't a
Mhm.
God, then I'm perfectly justified in my viewpoint.
Okay. Now
So
we're gonna start.
you have no evidence for there being a God. So when you ask me, what is God? God is nothing. God doesn't exist.
Okay,
God is just a made up thing.
that's called circular. Okay, you're saying God is made up because there's no evidence. Because there's no evidence, God is made up. And because God is made up, there's no evidence, and because it's just a circular thought. Okay. Now, second thing is you're
Yeah.
giving me your subjective opinion. You're not talking about reality. Okay. Reality is God exists or God does not. That is objective. Okay. Now, what you're
But
telling me is
how do you
I
know
lack
that?
a belief.
How do you know there aren't a myriad of God? How do you know that there aren't thousands of gods?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So now you're telling me that you really don't have a good concept of God. Okay, you're telling me
I have
this is what I've read.
thousands of concepts of gods,
That's great. Okay,
thousands
I
of them.
get that, and none of them
Believable,
are, yeah.
believable.
Okay, based on your lack of experience, your lack of knowledge, because you've
No,
never
from
seen it.
my total abundance of experience.
Oh, so you haven't experienced God, and because you haven't experienced it, God does not exist.
No,
Great.
what I've experienced has told me that there's no need for a
There's no
God.
need for a God. Okay, but
No.
you again, you've come back to that several times. You said there's no need for a God, but
Yeah.
you're not telling me what it is you don't need, other than to say
But
it doesn't
well,
exist. And
what are you offering?
well, the thing
What
is,
God are you offering?
okay, I'm not getting there yet.
Because you keep implying that I'm arguing that
Yeah, you
I
are.
don't need God,
Yeah,
therefore
you
God
are.
doesn't exist.
You're just
I'm
making up.
not.
You're just
I'm
making up as you go along, and all
no
based on the fact
no.
that I don't know anything. It's like
If
Yeah,
if
but you're proposing that there's a God.
okay. This is where you sound. Okay,
Yes,
you sound like someone in 1580 A.D. telling me they don't need a car. Okay, that's how you sound. Okay, well, what is a car? I'm not really sure, but I know I don't need one. Okay, how do you know you don't need one? Well, I just know there.
I didn't say I didn't need one. I said I see no reason to believe that there is one. And in
Okay,
1583,
there's no
I'd say
reason.
I don't believe in cars because show me a car.
Okay, well, that's the example. Is you're coming from a position of ignorance.
Well,
Okay, you're coming from a position of I don't know, and then you're coming back like I don't believe. Well, that's like I said, that's subjective. Okay, that's a retreat. You're not talking about the real
should
world anymore.
people
You're talking
yeah,
believe
about
in
your
things
feelings.
they don't
but even
know?
your example of a car,
What?
your car, somebody invented the idea of a car and presents it to me,
Okay,
and I'm
you're
supposed to say, "Oh,
not
of course,
following.
that sounds
Okay,
perfect. I
look,
need one
look,
of those right
look.
away."
Not following an analogy does not make good for a good conversation. Okay, this is one of those conversations I have where I say, okay, well, you're on a desert island. There's 6 people and food for 5. What do? I call the rescue on my sat phone. Okay, look, not following analogy doesn't doesn't make you a winner here. Okay, now I'm trying to communicate the point that you do not have a firm idea of what God is. And
Oh, tell
because you
me,
do not have a firm idea of God, everything you said up until now is just poof, gone. There's no basis for it.
what is your firm knowledge of God? Explain it to
Okay,
me.
okay. No, I'm not. Okay, we're talking
No,
about you, and now we're gonna go to free
no,
will. Okay,
we're not talking about me.
yeah, we
You're
are.
saying that I don't believe in God because I don't want to believe in God. That's what you're
No, I'm
trying to make
saying
a
you
point
don't
of.
believe in God
You're
because you have
trying
no
to
idea what it
say
is.
I don't believe in God because I don't know what God is. But
Right?
I have I'm saying that there's no need for there to be a God. So why
There's
should I
no need.
believe in something
There's no
there's no need
need.
for one?
Okay.
No, there isn't. There's
Okay.
no
So you
need.
have no
Can you
idea
explain
what
a
it
need?
is. Okay. So we're
It's
gonna go
made
to
up.
free will.
I know.
We're
I
gonna.
know exactly what it is.
It's
It's
made
a
up.
made up concept.
Okay. Can you
Yes.
prove it's made up, or is that just your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and prove it's
People
made up.
wondered where the rain came from. They decided that there was a magical being that dropped water on the earth, and that's where rain
Okay.
came from.
Oh, okay.
People have invented God since people started thinking about things.
Right.
That's my
So
evidence.
now you're arguing that God is a rain god. That's what you're arguing. God, because there's no
No,
need for a rain god. There's
no,
no.
that was an
Okay.
example.
Okay. All right. So clearly, we're going to say God is not, the rain god.
Well,
Um.
to them it was.
Okay.
There was a rain
Yeah.
god, and there was a wind god, and there's an
Right.
animal god, and animal spirits. There are all
Right.
kinds
Right.
of gods.
Right.
There are
And you're
thousands
sure they
upon
don't
thousands
exist. You're sure none of
of
them
gods.
exist. You're sure none of them
Um,
exist.
yeah, I'm
100%.
pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. Based on.
Well, like based on knowing where rain comes from and knowing where wind comes from and knowing what
Oh,
animals are.
okay. So that tells me you know where rain is, but that doesn't tell me there's no rain god. Okay, that doesn't tell me that there's nothing out there causing rain. That's
Well,
great, I think. You know, you have this.
there's no pink balloon god either. But
I
there
don't
could
know of
be.
any.
It's
I don't.
possible. It's
Okay.
possible that there could be a rain god. It's
Oh,
possible that there could be a wind god. It's possible
ah.
that there could be a god for every
Congr-
speck of dust in the universe.
well,
There could be an
congratulations.
individual god for each thing.
Oh,
But
congratulations. You discovered Pascal's wager. Wonderful. You got ahead of the
you're
lesson. That's great. I give you
but
credit.
is there a reason to believe that there is?
Okay, it's very simple. Is it better to be safe or sorry? Real simple principle.
It better be safe than sorry.
hmm
Safe from what?
Well, let's just pick the rain god for now. Since you picked the rain god, we'll go ahead and say, is it better to be safe or sorry about the rain god? Would you
Um,
like your crops not to have rain?
I'd rather understand rain
I
than
I
decide
I
that there's
get
some
I
rain god
get
that I should pray to.
I I get that. I get you think you understand rain and the, absolutely you think you can predict the zillions and zillions of things that go into why it rains here and not there. I get that. I totally do. Okay, so we're talking about Pascal's wager, and it's a very simple
Uh,
principle. Is it better to be safe or sorry? And I ask you, is it better to be safe or sorry?
I suppose it'd be better to be safe than sorry.
Great. So that means the burden's on you to say, no, the rain god doesn't exist. No, the God of the Bible doesn't exist. No, Ahura Mazda doesn't exist. You should have a very coherent answer because otherwise, it looks like you're going to right where your
Well,
background says you are.
well, better be safe than sorry.
That's the basis of
Sorry,
Pascal's wager.
yeah. Sorry of what?
Well,
Now, if I don't believe in your God, I'm going here.
I'm
That's
Zoroastrian.
the
Okay,
threat.
so
That's
I
the
am.
basic threat.
That's the basic threat.
So it's
The
better
basic
be
threat.
safe. Now, in the
hmm
1800s, it would have much safer
hmm
to believe than not to believe because I would
hmm
have been tortured and possibly killed for not believing.
That's great.
So
I'm
yes, it
talking
would have
about
been
God.
safe and
I'm not
sorry.
talking about
So
God's followers right now. I'm not talking about God's
religion is a
followers.
lot about threats.
I'm talking about what happens after you die.
Same thing that happened to me before I was conceived.
All right. So you believe that nothing happens to you after you die. Is that playing it safe or is
Decomposed?
that what? Is that playing it safe
Decomposed?
or is that playing it sorry?
Safe? I'd rather
So
there be nothing.
okay, so you're arguing that there is good reason to believe that nothing will happen to you after you die, and that reason is?
Because spending eternity in a timeless, spaceless void sounds horrible.
Hmm. So it sounds bad, so therefore you don't believe it. It's good. It's very reasonable. You don't have any like proof that there's no
Well,
hell. You don't have any
it's
evidence. You
it's
haven't
I
debunked every single near death experience. You haven't debunked every single one. A lot of people say they come back and
I'm
experience heaven
not
or
sure
hell.
what point you're trying to make.
I'm making the point that you believe that the default is God does not exist. You believe that you don't have
Yes.
any burden to prove, that you are making a good choice. Okay.
Let me ask you this. Do you think you would have believed in, I don't know what God I assume you believe in a God, which one you would have believed in, had you been born in a place where no one thought about God, no one mentioned God, there were no beliefs of God.
Yes,
Everyone
because I
was a
figured it all
non-believer
out.
because
One of the things that makes
nobody,
me a religious
and
scholar is the
and
fact that I
and
figured it all out.
you would have been the one person on earth that figured out, no, there's a God, and if I don't believe in it, I'm going to suffer in eternity.
Okay.
You would have been that one person?
That's an interesting question on two different levels. Number one, it presupposes things that don't exist and never happened. I will suspend that for a time. However, a sufficiently intelligent person such as myself would have figured it out. Okay. We can start with something very simple philosophically. We can
Do you
start
know
with
why people believe in hell?
why? Because it's real.
No, because they saw volcanoes and hot water geysers, and they figured this is where the terrible people go.
No, the terrible people go to Detroit. Okay,
So
and
that's why everyone thinks hell is below the earth,
mm-hmm,
because that's where the hot things are.
right.
And they assumed where the hot things are is where bad people go.
Mm-hmm.
And they created the concept of hell.
They created the
That's
concept.
why we have hell. And heaven, people looked up and thought the white, fluffy clouds looked so
Mm-hmm,
peaceful and nice and calm and wonderful. I thought that's where the good people go. They go up to heaven. That's what people used to believe.
mm-hmm.
And people still believe it, but they
Okay,
don't understand why they believe it. They believe it because they've been
right,
told this their entire lives.
right. And
It's a fantasy that's been
I
told
get.
to children, and they still believe it.
Okay, I get
Why
that
do
there
you
are a lot of
believe it?
people like that. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm the one that figured it out. Okay,
Really?
so yeah,
So you're a
yeah,
super genius.
yeah, actually.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, I'm a savant in philosophy, so this is kind of effortless
Okay.
for me. But we can start
Okay.
with something really simple, like what is truth? If you want to start there, it's like, oh, okay, so you know what? You're saying I don't need God. So okay, why don't you go ahead and define
Hmm.
truth? Go ahead.
Okay. What is
Right.
truth?
You don't know. That's a good question. So now you know you
No,
know.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you. What is truth?
Oh, so you don't know.
No, I'm asking you.
I asked
I
you.
know what truth is, but I'm asking
Okay.
you.
No, no, go ahead. Tell me what truth is.
You're the one who brought up truth, so I'm asking you what it
I
is.
asked you a question. I asked you the question. What is truth?
No, you said I don't know what truth is. You didn't
Yes.
ask me. You just made a
Okay.
comment, and I'm
Okay.
asking you, what is
Okay.
truth?
Well, let's just start out. Truth doesn't exist if there's no God. We'll start there.
Okay.
See, I'm making the point. You asked the question, how do I know God exists? Dropped into this universe with my
Well,
brilliant
you didn't
mind.
you didn't tell me what truth was. You just told me if truth doesn't exist,
Right.
neither does God. Now you sound like Frank Turk.
Okay, well, you're the one that says you don't need a God, and I'm
No,
asking you what truth is.
I didn't
And
say I don't
oh,
need a God. I said I see no reason to believe that there is one.
okay, so
It's a
we're
big
addressing
difference.
that. We're addressing that.
It's a subtle difference, but it's a significant
Okay, we can
difference.
address it any way you want.
Well, I'm still
But
waiting for you to tell me what truth is.
oh, so you can tell me I'm wrong.
No, I'm just curious what you think truth is.
All right, truth is the will of God. There you go.
Truth is the will of God?
Yes, God created the universe, so what is true is up to him.
Okay.
Okay, so now it's your turn to tell me what you think truth is.
Truth is what you can show to be true and accurate, but
Oh,
it's subjective. Everything
subjective.
changes. There is no absolute truth. Is the
Oh,
sun
there it is.
hot? Is the sun hot?
Okay, so now you just
No,
argued
I'm
that it is
asking, is the sun hot?
you're
Is it true
I'm
that the sun is hot?
okay.
Simple question. Is it true that the sun is hot?
In theism, yes.
In
Okay, because we
theism?
have truth. You don't. You
So
have
if you put it next
subjective.
to a supergiant red dwarf that's 10 times hotter than the sun, is the
Hmm.
sun still hot?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, a bowling ball is heavy. If you put a bigger bowling ball next to the smaller they're both heavy. One is heavier. Now, you made an excellent
Okay.
point because you argued in atheism that it is absolutely true that there is no truth, which is a contradiction. So now we know that truth exists. I congratulate you. Twice you've been ahead of the
Well,
game. Or are you going to just continue to argue that it's all subjective
well,
and real?
I'm not, it it is pretty subjective
Okay, so congratulations.
because
You
pretty much anything you can find an alternative meaning, alternative definition to make a statement not true.
okay. Except we just covered that because you argue that it's absolutely true that there is no truth, which is a contradiction. So
No,
if
I
logic
didn't
exists,
say that.
yeah, you said there's no absolute truth. Your whole little point just
No,
now was
well,
saying there's no absolute truth, and that's a
I said
contradiction.
truth was subjective. I
Yeah, and
said truth was subjective.
that's also a subject. That's also a contradiction because you're saying the truth is that truth is subjective. It is absolutely true that truth is subjective. You are literally contradicting yourself.
Okay.
So, so there you go. I've dropped into a vacuum and I've shown you some problems with a strictly atheistic paradigm. I can go on all day.
Okay. I'm sure you can. You haven't said anything yet.
Well, I've said a few things. I've shown you that you don't know what God is, and I've told you that truth has to exist, and so now we have to explain truth, or we have
Well,
problems.
I can say you don't know what gravity is. I mean,
And that
tell
means
me,
what?
that I don't know what God is
Right.
without defining what God is, not showing what God is, just this arbitrary idea of God absolutely positively exists, and you don't understand what it
Well,
is.
no,
Therefore, you're
that
wrong.
that
No,
was
that's what you're
no,
saying. That's what
that
you're
was stage
saying.
one. Yeah,
You're
that
saying
was wage one.
God definitely exists, and you don't understand it.
No, no,
Therefore,
no, no.
you're
Hold
wrong
on,
for
hold
not
on, hold on,
believing
hold
it.
on. I'll slow down for you.
No,
Okay, I'll slow down. If we are talking about
you go any slower, I'm going to fall asleep.
okay, if we are talking about belief, which is where we start, I lack
Uh huh.
a belief. We're not talking about the existence of God. We're not
Yes.
objectively here yet. If we're talking about subjective, should I believe in God or should I not believe in God? Okay, Justin, we don't even have a really good definition of God yet. Um, then it is better to believe per Pascal's wager because it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, we moved on from that to the
He's a
objective
philosopher. I
existence
don't
of
trust
God.
philosophers.
Yeah, well, if we talk about the existence of God, now we're talking about whether God actually exists or not. And you said, okay, we drop into a vacuum and I'm in the middle of nowhere. How do I discover God exists? Like, okay, well, we start off with truth exists. Now we're at a little impasse right here, and you are telling me that it is true that truth is subjective, okay, which is a contradiction. So you can't get away from the idea that truth exists. Okay, absolutely exists. And so then we say, well, where does truth come from? And that's where I defined God for you. I said God is the creator of the cosmos. God is the creator. Okay, so that is the definition of God that you asked for earlier. Okay,
Okay.
so now we have God, the creator, creates the cosmos, and among other things, he creates truth and morality and everything else that is attributed to him. Okay, that follows from the definition of God. That follows from creator of the cosmos. Make sense?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
So it's done. There's no more questions you should ask. I mean, what else is there?
That's pretty much true.
Basically, I have to accept your definition.
What?
I have to accept your definition.
God is creator. There you go. I've gone over this with
I don't.
Scott.
I don't accept it.
Okay, you don't have to. There are actually only 4 possibilities. I've went over them with Scott for your benefit. I'll go over them again.
Okay.
Okay, you start off that either the cosmos exists or it doesn't. Okay, can we accept that either the cosmos exists or it does not exist? Can we accept that? Or do you want to play with it for a little bit?
It exists for me.
Okay, so we'll start off with it exists for you. That's great. We'll go there. Okay. The other option is the cosmos does not exist, which is nihilism. Okay.
Well, if the cosmos did not exist, then we would not be aware of it not existing
Right. I
because
know.
we
I'm not
also would
saying
not exist.
I agree with you that nihilism is not a very coherent. Doesn't actually. I'm going to say it makes
Uh-huh.
sense, but it's false. Okay. Can we read that? But I want to make sure that we've covered all our bases. So someone can't say,
Okay.
no, I don't believe the cosmos exists. Okay, great. You're a nihilist. Great. Awesome. Okay, but you believe it exists. Okay, so if it exists either contingently or of necessity. Okay, now if it exists contingently, that is contingent on a cosmos creator. And if it exists of necessity, then you have pantheism. So we've got 2 so far. Scott over there is a pantheist, and I respect him for that. I disagree with him, but at least I respect him because it is an intellectually consistent position. Okay, pantheism. No, so then we get to theism, and theism branches off into 2 different possibilities. Either it is contingent on a cosmos creator, which is God, or it is contingent on the observer, which is solipsism. So there you have the 4 different possibilities. Solipsism, nihilism, pantheism, theism.
I think Tom mentioned earlier in our discussion that under that discussion of the God label, that gravity was God, right?
Gravity does not explain the existence of the universe, so no.
Neither does the creator.
Yes, it does. The cosmos
No,
does
it
not,
doesn't.
because, go ahead, tell me why it does it.
Well, what was the intent?
The intent?
If a God created the universe,
Right.
it must have had a reason for it.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
What was its intent?
The intent is part of the definition of God being maximally great. The greatest thing that God could do would be create everything from nothing and create the best of all
But
possible
but
worlds.
but why?
Why?
What was the purpose? What was the reason? What
It's
was
part of
God's
being
intent?
it's
For
this
if a God created the universe,
right,
it must have had a reason
right.
for creating the universe. What was that reason?
It's a work of art. It's creative force. It's the
Work of
same
art?
reason. Yeah. The universe is a work of art. It's magnificent.
Okay, so you were created to hang up on God's wall?
That's a very weird way of putting it, but if it's
Well,
real,
you said it was a work of art. So I
yeah,
mean, what do you do with a work of art? I mean,
You look at
well,
it.
it's the
I
same
mean,
way. It's the
what's
same
you
way the
know,
same God created the universe just
God
so much
God said, I'm bored. I'm going to make that universe. So I have something to look at.
yeah, it's the same reason we grow a garden, the same reason we write a book, the same reason we write a song. It's the same reason it is a work of creative energy. And
So
that's also
God
why we live.
created the universe
hmm
to show off to other people, other gods.
No, he created the
No,
universe. God
because
created,
people write books for other
right,
people. People plant gardens for food and sustenance.
all right,
People
right,
do things for reasons.
right.
They don't just arbitrarily decide for no reason I'm going to create a universe because art.
I will disagree with that point. I think
Well,
creating beauty
you can
a
disagree. That's
wonderful
fine.
is a wonderful reason to do things in and of itself. I mean, if I write a great story and no one ever reads it, you know what? I still wrote a great story.
Well, here's a question.
Sure.
If God created the universe for art, why
hmm
did he want to do that? Why did he want to do
Yeah,
that?
reason
God wanted to create
for his
the
own
best of
fulfillment.
all possible worlds.
Did he
So,
have to do that?
Is this the best of all possible worlds?
yes.
Oh my goodness! Why did God create parasitic wasps?
Parasitic wasps were created to give us a fractal demonstration of how evil actually works. Uh,
Really? Then why are
yeah,
there like 6,000 versions of them? Species?
I mean, it's again,
Couldn't
it's
he
the
couldn't he
concept.
just done one version, just one species, and been done with
No,
it?
like just like there's
Why
not
are there
one
like six
version of
thousand
cow.
species of it?
How many species of goat are there? Okay, how many species of dog are there? It's the same thing. Okay,
Exactly. Why?
it's to
Well,
teach us
people
a lesson.
created dogs. I mean, we
You
have all
understand?
different
You
dog types of people.
understand what
Artificial.
I mean. You understand what I mean. Don't play dumb.
Well,
It's disrespect.
I don't know what you mean. You're saying
Okay.
God created the universe for art,
Yes,
and He
as a
created a
work of
bunch of
art,
different
as
things
an
for.
artist.
And
Okay.
if we're here for art, then
Was God
why the vastness of the universe
was God
for
great
us?
before creating, or did his creating make
There was no
God
there
more greater?
Scott, there was no time before creation. There was no
Okay.
before.
So you're
Um,
sure that there wasn't a universe before this universe? You're 100% sure,
yeah,
and that's based on
based on that there is no universe before us. There is no, you'd be arguing that,
it's based on your belief that God created this universe, so therefore nothing could have
the
existed. How do you know God
yeah,
didn't create multiple universes?
because the greatest of all
Maybe he has a
possible
whole
beings,
wall of art on his wall.
because the greatest of all possible beings wouldn't need to do it more than once,
Why?
because it
Maybe he was
contradicts
bored.
the definition. It contradicts the definition of greatest. You see,
Well,
now
why is
you're
he
using a
the
strong.
greatest? Well, no,
Okay, whoa, I'm
you're
answering
saying
the
things
question.
because you've decided to,
No, because I
with
figured
no
it out.
reason for saying them. You have no
No, I
justification for
have,
what you're saying.
I am
You're just saying
justifying.
because God is the greatest of all greatness.
Okay,
That's what you're
so
saying.
now what you're
You're
doing
not saying
is
anything.
I am, and now you're saying that now you're trying to argue that God is not the greatest. Okay, that is a
No,
straw man.
I'm not arguing the God is not the greatest because you haven't given me a reason to believe that there's a God yet.
Okay, we just covered truth. Truth exists.
Well,
The
no,
greatest
you
truth exists.
created
That is the reason.
a
I
word that
gave you
was
a
created
reason.
by humans and a
Okay.
definition that was created by
Oh,
humans.
no, it wasn't. The humans don't
Yeah, it
create
was.
definition. No, it doesn't.
Pretty much.
Okay, so you're deciding that you can words mean whatever you want them to mean. Is that what you're saying? You're
Well,
just destroying language.
they
Okay.
mean what everyone agrees that they mean.
Oh, so truth is a matter of consensus. Great.
Hello, Victor from Fight on the Fence. How you doing, man?
Fist bump.
Mr. Alejandro, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing
I
wonderful.
I'm
just
Thank
I
you
got
doing
a
asking.
good.
couple of minutes.
Hey,
Working hard, man.
I'm actually on call. What I'm going to do, because this conversation looks like
Oh, you
it's.
guys
Do
hear
you
me
guys
good?
have time to go on some more?
Yeah,
We
I
can pick
can.
it
Yeah,
up
we can
Let
hear
later
me
you
if you
good.
want. You know, just give me
let me
some
know if you
Because
warning.
can.
I was just going to take care of some.
You want to take care of some?
I can let you guys go. I can let the stream go. I can take care of what I need to take care of and come back,
That's fine.
or we can pick it up later. Which one do you
How long
guys
are you going
want
to
to
be
do?
gone?
Probably 30 minutes.
Victor, what do you think?
I'm here all night.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll take it. We'll do it. We'll see it.
Okay.
See you in
Let
30
me
minutes.
do. Let me. All right. Let me get on down the road as quick as possible. Then
Okay,
I'll be back. All right.
sounds good.
Oh, I only have a couple of minutes. I just want
Go on.
Go on.
to. So I got to come back in because it sounds like echo. Can you guys hear me fine?
I can hear you, but you probably want to put a mic on because anytime you use the speaker on a podcast like this, it tends to create an echo.
It can cancel itself out. You keep getting cutting out.
Victor, do you
Ah,
have a headset that you can use? Okay, and Victor, you muted yourself.
okay. Let me see. Let me try again.
Okay, well, I can. All right, so I don't know if Victor's going to be able to get on without the StreamYard guy in charge, which is going to be rough. Victor, I appreciate it. Go ahead and type in the chat, and I can read the chat here, and I can speak for you.
Oh, is there a chat?
There's a chat
I
if you
mean,
go
like,
on the app.
oh no, I just get the website. No, well, yeah, I see the chat.
Okay,
Now that I
so
have my glasses on.
picking up where we left off, I've given you a reason, which is Pascal's wager, it's better be safe than sorry. And I've given you a definition, creator of the universe, and maximally great. And you are arguing God is not great because you think there's a better universe out there because clearly you know better than God. Go on.
Well, uh, Pascal's wager is a philosophical concept created by people.
Right, so
How's
you're
that
arguing,
truth?
how is it truth? Okay, so again, you're
How is
making
truth
us,
truth?
okay, so
Truth
again,
is an idea created by people and defined by people.
so you're arguing you
Yes?
just get to make it up as you go along and theists are wrong. Okay, so the problem
I
there
didn't
is
say theists were wrong. I just said I
you,
didn't think that they were correct.
okay, so the problem is that there's more theists than you. So if we all decide that God exists, we're the majority, so you're wrong.
I'll be tortured and murdered.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No? That
No,
sounds
because
that sounds
because you just
wonderfully
said
moral.
we get to make it up. What's moral? We get to make it up, and there's more of us than there
Yeah.
are of you. So,
Yeah.
you know, enjoy slow, painful death and then a slow, painful afterlife. You know, that's where you are. Congratulations, you've discovered the old gods. That's the way it was. Okay,
You know, the
before we
old
get
gods were discovered a long time ago.
yeah, and you're you're you're
And there's still people who believe in them.
right, and you
There's
are
still people who believe the
demonstrating.
earth is flat.
I get that, and you are demonstrating how people come to that. You see, you start off with this idea that truth is subjective. We get to make it up as we go
No,
along.
people came to
And
that because they were afraid of what happened to them after they died. They were
okay, no, I'm
fearful.
talking about
They
the
didn't
real world.
understand what happened to them when they died. So they
I'm
created an afterlife to make
okay.
themselves feel better.
I can address that, but first we're going to talk about this
Okay?
idea that you said that truth is just kind of this subjective thing. We get to make up what's right, wrong, good, evil, etc., etc. Guess what? There's more of us than there are of you. So you're
And
going
that
to
so might
either
makes right? So you're saying
well,
might makes right.
no, that's what you're arguing.
No, you're
I'm
saying
telling
might makes right. You just said there's more of
no,
us than you.
right,
Therefore,
and
we're correct.
I'm explaining to you your position. Your position is we make it up as we go along, and it's a subjective thing. And hey, you know what? I'm bigger and stronger than you, and I have more friends. So how do you find you put yourself in the box? You boxed yourself in, and I've explained to you how you boxed
I still
yourself
don't
in.
understand why you keep bringing up we're bigger and stronger and have more friends.
Because you argued
What
that it's
point are you trying to make
subjective.
with that?
You argued it's subjective. You said it's subjective. Okay, you said we get to make it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so who gets to make it up? The majority or the minority? The people with guns or the people who don't have guns? Who gets to
Depends on
decide
what
what
they're
is
making up.
true if it's subjective?
Somebody comes with an idea, and if everybody goes with it, it becomes true.
There you go. Okay, so atheism.
It doesn't need. And and everyone disagrees, then it that doesn't become true.
Right. So okay, so there's more
So
theists than atheists.
so there's no gang of friends. There's no
There's more theists than atheists.
overwhelming power of
I'm sorry.
the people.
You're in
It's
a
just an
corner.
agreement.
It's in a corner. You're in a corner. Sorry. You're going to have to work yourself out of the corner, or I can help you out, but then that's theism. So where are you going to go?
I'm trying to figure if my daughter's coming or not. You still haven't demonstrated that there's a God, other than saying it's great and it created the universe out of art.
Okay.
And because of Pascal's wager, because some guy said it's better to be safe than sorry, that is the ultimate dictate of believing in God. That's all you've come up with.
I've explained this to you. I'll explain it again for the benefit of the people who just tuned in. Okay. Pascal's wager addresses where we started this conversation, is where we didn't have a firm definition of God. We didn't really know what we were talking about. And it's this vague idea like, well, should I or shouldn't I? And the conclusion is, unless I have firm evidence to the contrary, I should play it safe. So same thing. Is there a charge in that wire? Well, you know what? I better assume that wire's live. You know what? Is there a bullet in that gun? You know what? I better assume that there is. You know what? Is there a train coming on these tracks? Well, you know what? I better assume there is, because
you know what? Is there a monster behind that door? I better be safe and not open the door.
Okay, so
better
now
be safe than sorry. I better be fearful and be afraid of what might be, just in case. That's what you're saying.
You've done two things.
You're saying that it's no. You're saying it's better to be safe and believe in God rather than fear, rather than end up here.
Okay, yeah.
That's what you're saying.
You've done two things. Number one,
it's better to be safe and believe rather than sorry and get this.
Okay, so
that's what you're doing.
Yes, and you've done, yeah, and you've done two things to counter it, which I'm going to comment on. Number one,
and then you use the example of a bullet in a gun, or electricity in a wire, and I use the example of a monster behind the door.
Okay,
same thing you're doing.
No,
I'm just following your lead.
No, you're not. You're trying to find your way around it, and there is no way around it other than to say, you know what, I'm rather be sorry than safe. Okay, you're trying to take things from a conceptual level, and I'm trying to explain it, and you're doing the same thing where I don't understand the analogy. Look how smart I am. I don't understand what an analogy is. You know what? There's a desert island.
You have terrible analogies. Don't blame me for not understanding them.
Okay,
but I understand the analogy you're making, and I mimicked it, and you didn't like it.
Okay, an analogy is not an argument. Analogy is a tool to explain to you the concept, and you're trying very hard.
And I was explaining how I understood your analogy.
Okay, yeah, you didn't. You didn't. Okay.
I didn't?
Okay. No, you didn't. You don't understand the concept. See, that's the thing. You
really?
want to say it's better be sorry than safe.
I don't understand the analogy of safe and sorry. That's such a difficult analogy.
Yeah.
It's horrifyingly difficult.
You're not getting it
understand.
So clearly.
It's better to believe what you think is true rather than face what you think is true.
Oh, I think it's true. Okay, so tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why. Tell me why you don't.
I'm not saying that you're wrong.
Okay, so
I'm just saying I have no reason to believe you're right. For me, it's better to be safe and not believe than have the God that hates theists who believe in the wrong God. There could be a God that hates Christians and Muslims and Jews and all the others because they believe in a false God, but he loves atheists because they've used their intellect to say, I don't believe in all the gods these people have made up.
That's great. So okay, you've jumped ahead.
So
now we're having theology, and now we've established that God exists. Unfortunately for you.
Unfortunately for me?
Yes,
why is it unfortunate?
Because the question can only be resolved if God exists.
Why?
Okay, so Standard answer. Okay.
I mean, you're making basic statements, but you're making no reason to
Because
believe
they're
them.
very basic. I will explain though for your benefit and the benefit of the audience.
No, you're
Okay,
just
so
saying God exists, therefore God exists. We have to believe in God because God exists.
no, okay,
That's all you're
okay.
saying.
Now, if you'll let me, I'll explain. Okay, if you'll let
Try
me,
again.
okay.
Third
So,
time's the charm.
okay, I haven't explained it yet. You asked a
Oh, you haven't?
question.
Okay.
I'm explained it. Okay.
Okay.
I said to you that congratulations, we are now doing theology. Congratulations, God exists, and I'm saying that to you. Okay. The
Okay.
reason is the classic way I do this is what color is a unicorn? Okay. So, if you want to say the true God loves atheists, okay, I'm going to go with that for now. The true God, the real God, loves atheists, hates everyone else. That answer can only be correct if God exists. Otherwise, it's a meaningless statement.
Well,
It's not a real objection.
yeah, it
Okay,
is a meaningless statement. I was
for
making
example,
fun of you, in case you missed it.
well, you know what? You're trying to make fun of me, and you gave me an opportunity to debunk one of the standard atheist talking points, and I'm running with it. Okay, so
Okay.
if we have a conversation that says, okay, well, what color is a unicorn? If unicorns don't exist, this question has no answer. Okay, this question has no answer. I say they're
But
white, you
unicorns
say
do
they're green,
exist.
Scott says they're polka dots. None of those questions have any truth value. So as soon as you start to say, no, I truly believe unicorns are green, you have to acknowledge first that they exist. That's very, very easy to get. So you're doing theology, and I respect that. Okay, I respect that you believe that God loves atheists.
That's see that now that's the theistic ploy. You turn every statement of God into you must believe in God because you just said God.
You're smarter than that, Dom. Try again.
Well, maybe I'm too smart
No, you're
because
not.
that's all you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, you're saying when I ridicule and say, well, God must love atheists, or God could be a God that loves atheists and hates everyone else.
Well, you can
And you
take that.
said, there, you just proved God exists.
Yes, you argued that God loves atheists. You argued a very specific
No, I
conception
didn't.
of
I
God.
didn't. I didn't argue anything. I was making a
All right,
joke.
then. Okay, well, your joke kind of blew up on you. I'm sorry.
It did.
Okay.
See, I can't talk about a concept. Okay, let's change God into pink unicorns.
Okay.
Explain to me why a pink unicorn didn't create the universe, because pink unicorns are the perfect being that ever existed, and it wanted to create the perfect universe by farting out the Big Bang. Explain to me why that's not true.
Okay. So I'm going to explain this to you. All right. This is fair. Now, again, you're quoting atheist talking points I've heard for 10, 15 years now. So here it is.
Well, all
Number,
you've done is quote theistic talking points over and
yeah,
over,
I wrote
and
those
you
talking
haven't said
points.
anything yet.
No, I
You
wrote
just
those
keep
talking points.
you keep saying God is real, but you haven't really demonstrated any
Yeah, I
reason
did.
why I should believe that.
Yeah, I did. I demonstrated that was the first thing I did. Better be safe than
No,
sorry.
you didn't. Well, you didn't demonstrate it very well because I still don't believe.
Okay, you're free to be not rational. That's okay. It's okay for you to decide, I don't want to be rational. I want to be listening to reason. Gives me an opportunity to talk. I'm happy to. Okay.
Keep trying.
Okay. So I gave you a reason to believe, gave you a
Uh
definition,
huh.
and now I've said, about your
You said
arguing
better
that God
safe
loves
than sorry.
atheists. And so now we're talking about your pink farting unicorns. Great. Okay. So here's the thing. There is the definition of God. Maximally great, creator of the cosmos, all knowing, all loving, all powerful.
When did that definition come into being?
That was some centuries ago.
Okay, because gods have been around for thousands of years.
Yes, and people's understanding of gods evolve over time. Okay, so
You
I'm
believe in
answering your
evolution.
question. All right, so I'm answering a question, and the thing is, if it answers the definition of God, it's God no matter what you say. All right, so like I talked to Scott in the last episode, if something is a poop sandwich, me calling it a peanut butter and jelly does not change it into a poop sandwich because it answers the definition of poop sandwich. So if it created the cosmos, is all powerful, all knowing, all loving, and so forth. Okay, you can call it a
Hmm.
pink unicorn if you want. You can call it a Hura Mazda. You can call it Yahweh. You can call it
Okay.
any number of things. If it answers the definition, it is that thing. Now, if it does not answer that definition, it's not that thing. You can call this piece of electronics right here God, but guess what? This little piece of electronics did not create the cosmos. So you calling it God doesn't make it God. Just like you calling it a PBJ does not make it a PBJ. Okay.
So basically, what you're saying is
Mhm.
that people created a definition
Didn't create.
and then
You're going
said
back to
God
yourself.
fits this description,
We
therefore God
discovered.
exists.
No, we discovered the definition
How do you discover it?
through
What
rational
was your
inference.
method of discovery?
Reason.
Really?
Yes.
Then why are more and more people losing their minds, I guess, and not believing in God? And
Why
why? And you still haven't answered the question of why God created the universe, other than art.
art is a sufficient
I
answer.
mean, but for who? I mean, you don't create art just for the self gratification. So God created the
Sometimes,
universe for self
if it was
gratification.
self-gratification, we wouldn't be here. Okay.
But what do you mean we wouldn't be here if it was self
We're
gratification?
here,
What
right?
is
So we
art for?
can.
What is art for? Nothing else but your own satisfaction,
Okay.
other than self gratification.
Okay. First of all,
Why create something for no reason except for art?
okay, it's not
For
for
no
no
other
reason. It
thing
has
other
a
than for
reason.
your own personal desire. How is that not self gratification? What is
Okay.
self gratification? Self gratification is doing something that gratifies you, for you, only you, because that's what you want.
Okay.
And God created the universe because
God
He
created the
wanted to create
universe
something perfect.
because that is the greatest thing he could have done. There is no
But
greater
why?
act.
But
Why?
what's so great about it?
What's so great about the universe? I hate to break it to you.
Yeah,
That's a
how do you
weird
know this is the
question.
greatest universe?
Okay.
Wouldn't have been. I mean, could have been better.
Yeah, because you're all knowing. Great. Okay.
Could have been a lack of disease.
Right. You're
Could have
all
been
knowing.
could have been everlasting life. Could have been a lot of things that would have been better. You just decided that God decided that this was perfect.
This was the
This is
best
what
of all
God wanted.
possible
Because this
options. Because a great
really, you couldn't
being.
think of anything better. You, a mere mortal, couldn't think of anything better than what we have here. A species of animal that destroys the very planet that it lives on. That's
Mhm.
the best possible creation. That's
Well,
the best God could do.
this is the best God could do, fortunately.
And that's pretty sad disappointment.
Okay,
I wish there was a better
unfortunately now,
God.
well, congratulations. Now you're getting into the moral argument. Bravo. Number
The
4.
moral argument.
Yes, you're arguing that, oh my God, there's suffering in the universe. That sucks. Now, again, you're arguing that there
No,
is
I'm not
right and
saying it
wrong.
sucks. I'm just
Okay,
saying
you're
that
making a
if
moral complaint.
I'm just saying, no, I'm not. I'm
Yeah,
just
you
saying
are.
if this is the best that God could do,
Mhm.
then that's pretty disappointing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm not saying anything about morality. I'm not saying anything
okay.
about suffering. I'm just
And
saying if this is the best that God could do,
you're
if this is
making
absolute perfection,
an absolute statement again. Okay,
no,
so yeah,
I'm pointing out that
we can.
you're saying God did the perfect universe.
No, I didn't say it's
And
perfect. I said
I'm
best
curious
possible option.
what your level of judgment on a perfect universe is.
That feeds back into the definition of God being maximally great.
A definition come up by people who are
Okay,
pushing religion, who are pushing God belief. They
okay.
have an
Now,
incentive. They have an incentive to create a definition that matches the thing that they're defining.
okay.
Now they have a reason. They have a reason for doing what they did, and you have a reason for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, my reason is
But
reason.
God had no reason other than self-fulfillment or
Well,
self-gratification.
no, God created the universe. Okay, and
You
we're
keep
here.
saying that.
We're here, aren't we? We are here to observe
Yeah.
God's creation, right? We are here to improve God's creation.
Well, we're here. Well, I'm here. I mean, I know that I'm here because I have knowledge of myself. You could
No,
be
you
a
don't.
figment of my imagination. You
Congratulations,
could be
solid
part of
system.
a very complex computer simulation.
Right.
I
With this
mean,
computer simulation is
you
creationism.
don't know.
Well,
Well,
congratulations. The computer simulation is creationism with extra steps. That's all it is. You want to go
well,
back to the idea where you don't know truth. That's actually better for you, because if you argue a simulation, someone created the simulation. Congratulations. That's creationism
I'm
with
not
extra
arguing for a
steps.
simulation. I'm just giving examples that have been given,
Right. They're all
almost as
atheist
long
talking
as
points. I told you I've
examples.
been doing this for 10, 15
Well,
years. I know
yeah,
all your
but all
talking
you're
points.
doing is theist talking points. I've heard everything you said.
Right.
Every word that you said,
hmm
I've heard repeated umpteen times.
Right.
You just keep repeating
Okay.
the
So tell
universe
me,
exists,
tell me where you
therefore
heard about
God.
tell me about the four possibilities. Where did you hear that before?
I heard from too many people. I'm sure
No,
Frank Turk has
no,
said it. I'm
no,
sure
no.
Wayne, what's his name, Craig has said it. I'm sure John
Okay.
Lennox
Well,
has said
you
it.
know what? Go
I'm sure.
ahead
I mean,
and
there's a list of theists who make a living out of preaching that God is real, but none of them have convinced me. And
nothing says you have.
you're not doing a very good job either. But you said
I'm
the
not.
same thing I've heard over and over again.
Uh-huh. Is that where you're stumbling over everything? You're throwing out a bunch of
I,
chump, hoping? Come on, man. You're just throwing stuff out there.
there's nothing. Throwing what stuff
I'm
out there?
Look. Okay. Look. There's nothing obliging you to be rational, and you're arguing you don't have to be rational. You're arguing truth is subjective, so you're arguing you just get to make it up as you go along, and that brings us back to the fact that
Well,
Christians
I
and
didn't say
Jews
you
and
get to make it up
Zoroastrians
as you go along. I'm saying that society has made it up as it goes
and
along. It
society
has
has
created
decided.
words and then has created word definitions for those words.
And you went back to that. We
Before
covered
there
that
was
point.
language, there was no truth because
There's no
nobody had a
truth
definition
before
for
language.
truth.
There's no truth. Oh wow, God. So you're telling me, oh God,
Do you think
God.
ants believe in absolute truth? Do you
No,
think
ants are not
chimpanzees think about?
sentient.
Do you think
Their chimpanzees are not sentient.
chimpanzees think of absolute truth?
Okay,
Do
you're
you think
arguing that.
elephants have a god?
Okay, so that's
Do you
solipsism.
think elephants have
Okay,
religious
you've
beliefs?
made enough
No, I'm asking
examples,
you a question.
right?
Do you think elephants have religious beliefs?
They have the very fundamentals because they experience grief, which is a very, very basic insight into, religion, as into what happens to us after we die. That's very basic archaeologically. Now, to get to your question, you're arguing solipsism again, okay? You're arguing is the truth, truth does not exist unless I believe it's true. Okay, that's solipsism. Okay, that's where you are right now. You're saying I
Mm,
don't believe you. I don't believe it's better be safe than sorry because I believe that
no,
safe is worshiping the atheist
you're
God.
saying that I don't believe in true unless I decide what's true.
That's what you're arguing. You're arguing that you get to decide what's true. That's
No,
all.
you're saying what you think is true,
I'm saying what is
and
true.
you're making it sound like I'm being unreasonable for not believing you. That's what you're doing.
Well,
All
that's
you're
what's true.
doing is saying what's true or what you
hmm
believe is true, and
That's
then trying to paint me as being unreasonable for not believing you.
yeah, because you are being unreasonable for not believing.
I
Real
think
simple
you're being
stuff.
unreasonable for believing that there's a God.
How
I
am
think
I
it's
unreasonable?
a silly ancient
How is it
belief
unreasonable for me to believe that there's a creator to the cosmos, creator of the cosmos? How is that silly?
because you're just filling in the gap. You don't know how the universe came to be, so you're deciding that
I
it
went over
must have
that
been
with
a creator.
no, 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 no. I went over that with you. Your options
Well, no,
are,
you
Tom, I went over that with you.
you
You
went
can
off
argue the
your
cosmos
options.
doesn't exist.
I gave you other options,
You
but
can
you didn't
argue
like those options.
you can argue the cosmos doesn't exist. You can argue that the universe exists perpetually. You can argue that you're God, or you can argue that God exists. Those are your four options.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now,
So how am I being
when you say
unreasonable?
perpetually,
Yes,
when you
eternally.
say perpetually,
hmm
are you saying that this universe just has always been exactly as it is now?
Okay.
Or are you
You,
saying that something that was the basis of this universe has
I
always
am.
existed?
I'm saying that pantheism is the idea that the first uncaused cause is the cosmos. Everything is contingent on the cosmos. Okay, that's pantheism.
See, I believe it's possible that there
That's
have been
great.
multiple cosmos,
Okay,
and that it just bounces back and forth. It
and you don't have evidence,
expands and then contracts,
right?
and then expands and contracts.
Okay,
Matter and
great.
energy are interchangeable, so all of the energy needed to create all the matter in the universe could exist in a pinpoint.
You're right. I get that. I get that's pantheism. I get it. A version of pantheism, at least.
Well,
But you're a pantheist because you don't have any evidence.
well,
And then
you
you're
don't
going
have
to
any
run to.
evidence either.
So we have to
You,
compare which is more rational, don't we?
why is mine any less rational than yours?
Because yours doesn't support free will,
What is free will?
the ability to choose between good and evil, right and wrong.
Really, the ability to choose between good and evil. Let's look in here.
Sure.
Believe in God, free choice.
Right.
Believe in God, spend
Right.
eternity with God,
Mhm.
or go to hell. Your
Right.
choice. You have
Right.
free will. You can choose whatever you want. Your choices are to suffer for eternity
Mhm.
or not suffer for eternity. Go ahead and
Seems
make your
like
choice.
it's an easy choice. I choose God.
That's yeah.
It's a very easy
If I made
choice.
up those choices, I would choose those too.
Sure.
I would do the same thing as you if I made up those choices.
Right,
But
and you
those aren't my
already are.
choices. Those are
Oh,
your
they're not.
choices. They
Okay, so
are.
you're
You have
you're
no basis. You have no basis to suggest. I have evidence of why people believe this. I have historical evidence of why people believe there is a burning hell.
that's a genetic fallacy also, by the way.
What is your evidence that there actually is a literal burning hell? I mean, even the
North Korea.
Bible doesn't say there's a burning hell.
North Korea.
I mean, in the Bible it says, hell is you don't get to spend it with God.
Right. Okay, so I, in 2023, look
Uh-huh.
back on the world and I look at the places that don't believe in God, Soviet Union, North Korea, Cambodia.
Really, nobody in the Soviet Union believes in God?
They were very persecuted. Okay, it was a very atheistic regime. Communist China,
Really?
very
Like
atheistic.
the Crusades?
Okay, so now you
The
support
Crusades
Islam.
must have been atheists because they were pretty brutal.
So you're pro-Muslim.
Pro-Muslim?
Okay, the Crusades were a war waged against Islam. So if that's like
Okay.
saying, you know what, D-Day was a terrible, terrible thing. Like, okay, so you're
No, I'm saying
against,
people are terrible.
okay, so
People in general are terrible.
and atheism
And
solves
their
that problem.
religious
How?
beliefs has nothing to believe it. Politics has a lot to do with their behavior. But
Okay,
religion beliefs don't.
no,
Not
religious
believing in
beliefs.
God doesn't make people bad. There are a lot of places that are very atheistic that are the most peaceful places on earth.
You're not in 2023. You're back in like 2005.
I'm not in. I'm where?
You're back in 2005.
2021.
In 2023, where we're now in the current year, you can all these places that you talked about, which are atheist and peaceful, they're not peaceful anymore. They've been invaded by Muslims. So the same thing you point where you're like,
So basically, because another religion, the religion of peace, came in and made these atheistic places horrible, that is your argument that it's better to be religious
I'm.
or better. Yeah,
We'll start
I'm
off
not
with
sure what you're
something.
trying to say.
Well, you just said that God loves atheists, and you just said
No,
that
I was making fun. It was a joke.
you
I'll
is a
repeat
joke.
it again.
Really?
I'll repeat it as many times as necessary. It
Uh-huh.
was a joke. When I said
And
God
then,
loves atheists, I was making
right,
an example of how
right,
ridiculous it is to believe that
right.
there's a God.
And then you said the Crusades bad, which means that you support the Muslims. It's kind of like if I said, you
Well,
know
no,
what, the
I was
bombing of
pointing out that
Germany was,
religious
you
people.
know,
No, I was pointing out that religious people are
right?
not peaceful.
Okay,
That's what I was
yeah,
pointing out.
okay,
You're trying to
yeah.
you were trying to paint a picture.
Mhm.
You were trying to paint a picture that non-religious places
Yeah,
are evil.
yeah, they are.
And I was trying to paint the same picture, pointing out that religious people are evil.
Okay, now there's several places to go with this. Now, number one,
And then you brought up the example that these atheistic places that are no longer peaceful.
mhm.
Why are they no longer peaceful? Because religion came in, but
Okay,
not the
and
right religion apparently.
why did Muslims go to Europe? Who made that decision? Was it Christians that made that
Same
decision?
reasons Christians went to Africa. They went to propagate their religion. They went to recruit new
It doesn't
people.
answer the question, dude. It was
They went to
atheists in
take over the
charge of
world.
Europe. Atheists were in charge of Europe. Atheists opened the gates.
Atheists were in
Atheists,
charge of what? What do you mean
yeah,
atheists were in charge of
y-
Europe?
yeah, they're the ones that you're the ones just saying, "Oh wow, look how nice it'd be if atheists were in charge and we could be like Europe with socialized medicine." Yeah, they opened the floodgates and let Muslims in. Okay, so now the second part I was going to get to is this idea
So
that you're
atheists are evil because they believe in the better nature of humans, and they forgot that religious people are horrible.
okay. So that was the point I was getting to. Congratulations, you're way ahead of. Okay, so
I
the
keep jumping
problem.
ahead of you. You got to
No,
keep up
no,
with
no,
me, I guess.
no. I'm addressing your points because they're quite natural. Okay, they're quite natural. So I'm addressing the point. Okay, atheism doesn't solve the problems because as an atheist,
Atheism
you're
doesn't solve any problems.
well. Then again, why
Religion
should I?
causes problems, but
Okay,
atheism doesn't do anything. Atheism is purely a response to the claim that God is real.
that's a
Without
great.
people claiming God is
That's a
real,
great. That's a great
atheism
talking point. I
ceases
covered
to
that.
exist.
Okay, that's a great talking point, but I'm going to answer your question. Then I'm going to get to that. Okay. So the problem is that you're arguing that human nature is good. Okay, that's the
No,
problem.
I
You're
did.
arguing
I just said. I literally just said people are horrible.
great,
I
and
literally just said that.
atheism doesn't have a solution for that. So atheism again can't criticize religion because religion, if there is no God, is just the expression of human nature. So you're stuck. You're boxed in again. Okay, let's
More
look at
evil has been done in the name of God than anything else.
okay.
Nobody
So
goes around destroying humanity in the face of or in the name of atheism. No one decides
that
people
was
don't believe in God, therefore let's
that
kill all
was
the
the
people who
French
do.
Revolution. That was the Communist Revolution. So no, but I'm answering your question. Okay, so if there
Those were
is no God,
political. Those were political revolutions.
yeah, based
It's
on
always
atheism.
politics.
Is based on
It's not
atheism.
based on
So,
atheism.
moving on, as I was saying, if atheism, all you have is human nature, and religion is just the expression of human nature. It's just what people do. So you can't really criticize religion and be an atheist. Sorry, doesn't work.
Can't criticize. Do you know what atheism is? What's your
Yes,
definition of atheism?
atheism is the belief that God does not exist. It is also a lot of other things which I'm not going to
But
get into in this
under
podcast.
whose judgment? Who decided
Reality,
that definition?
reality did.
Reality?
Yes,
Really?
yes,
Because I'm an atheist and I don't
right.
not believe that there's a God.
Great. I understand that what you believe is wrong
I
and what you
also
believe is
I
wrong.
also don't believe that there isn't a Santa Claus
Right? Okay,
because
so
my
let me
God is
ask you a
falling on the
question.
corner.
I get that. Okay, now let me ask you a question then. Objectively, there are two options, exist or not exist. Is there a third option? Is there a third option which is neither exists nor does not exist?
Mm, can't think of one. Exist or
Good.
not exist. Either
Right.
something is or something isn't.
Right. Very simple.
Okay.
Great. So if theism is God exists,
And you were
atheism is,
wrong on your definition of atheism, at least in my opinion.
in your opinion, that's great. But like I said, your definition is subjective. Okay.
Because what you were talking about was agnosticism.
Okay. So
Do
again,
you know the difference between
objectively,
agnosticism and atheism?
agnosticism is people who genuinely don't know and are curious. Atheists like to
No,
play off.
no.
Uh-huh.
Agnosticism is about knowledge. Either you
Mhm.
know God is real or you don't know God is real. That's agnosticism. Atheism is either you believe that there's a God or you don't believe there's a God. That's atheism. Two
Okay.
very different ideas with
Okay.
specific
So
rules.
you've
So I'm
again made my point.
agnostic because I don't know if there's a God. I'm an
Mhm.
atheist because I don't believe that the claims that there is a God.
Okay. So I've been over this a couple of times. I'll repeat for our audience. You're answering an objective question with a subjective answer. And that's a problem because that shows us that atheists can't distinguish between the subjective and the objective. That's like me saying, okay, does the book exist or does the book not exist? I don't know. Okay, that doesn't change whether the book exists or not. That has nothing to do with reality. So instead of being objective
Well,
with me, and
well,
answering the
is it the
question in a real
Muslim
world,
God? Is it the Muslim God, or is it the Christian God? Or is it the Hindu God? Or is it the Jewish God?
Well, very good.
I
Very
mean,
good. Now
what
we understand
God
that God
is it?
exists. We went over this before.
No, we don't
Okay.
understand that God exists. We understand that
Okay.
you claim God exists, but you
No,
haven't defined
okay,
why God exists, and you
if you're
haven't
gonna ask,
defined why God created you everything,
what do you
which
mean I
you
didn't
clearly
define
believe
God? I've
does.
defined God very clearly for you a couple of times. Do you not
Well,
remember? So you're just
a
repeating
perfect
talking
being.
points. You're not actually just listening to me. So go back. I defined God. I told you when I
Yeah,
defined God.
yeah,
Okay. Do you remember that?
yeah.
Okay, good. So the question is, does God
But
exist
that
or not?
doesn't tell me anything.
That doesn't tell you anything. I went over it with you.
Absolute perfection doesn't tell me anything.
Okay.
I mean, what is God?
Doesn't tell you anything.
Is God a mind? Is God spirit? Is God consciousness? Is God? I mean, what is God? I mean, you defined what you think God is, but God must exist as something.
Hmm.
I mean, God. If there's a God, it must
Right.
be
I get
something.
that. That's a good question,
What is
actually.
it?
I
I mean, you
appreciate that.
defined what you think God is.
Right.
You've done that many times, but you still
I get
haven't
that.
said what God is.
God is the abstraction.
The abstraction?
Is an abstraction. Okay.
Okay.
An abstraction is something like logic, truth, beauty. These are things that don't actually exist in the real world. A good example would be the
So
French
God is something
Revolution,
that it doesn't exist in the real world.
materially. Okay, so you can't pick something up. Let's say this little thing right here. All right,
Uh-huh.
that's something that exists materially, concretely. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there
Yes.
anything you can pick up and say that is the French Revolution?
No?
Very good.
Can't say I can.
Very good. Bravo. You understand abstractions. The French Revolution existed. The French Revolution was real. There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing in the real world that is, materially the French Revolution. We
Mm-hmm.
can do the same thing with any historical event. That's very easy to access.
Well, you go back 500 years, there is no French Revolution, and it
It's an
didn't
example.
exist.
It's
It's
an
kind of like your
example.
example of the car.
Okay.
Things
You
come
know,
into being. Things that exist came into being.
okay, I mentioned not understanding
But
analogies.
God,
Analogies are inherently imperfect. Not
yeah,
understanding them doesn't make you sound smart. I'm sorry. Okay,
I'm
so
just trying to wrap your head around what you're saying.
I know what I'm saying.
I know you keep repeating.
No, I've answered every. You keep asking different questions, and I keep answering them.
You say God's an abstraction.
Yes, as in what
God
kind of
exists.
thing God is.
Yeah.
A good
That
example would be
God created the universe
right
to create something perfect.
as part of His nature as God.
And God is, I'm not forget the exact words you use, but you basically say God is perfection.
It is what I believe they call the ontological argument, that than which nothing greater can be conceived.
So to me that just sounds like an idea.
It does sound like an idea because it is a concept. It is an idea. It is an abstraction. There are several words for it, but I think
And
abstraction
why
is the most accessible one.
and why does it need to exist?
Okay, we went over that.
Then
Do you
repeat,
remember?
please.
What was the definition I gave for God? The first one.
Well, I know what definition. I asked you, why does it need to exist?
It
Why
exists
does
of
it need to be
necessity. It
God?
can't not exist. Okay, kind of like truth.
Necessity
Remember
of
we went over
what?
logical necessity. It can't not exist. There can't not be truth. There can't not be a creator. That you can't not have a worldview. You have
Well,
a worldview. You can't
when you
not.
say there can't not be a creator,
Right.
what is the definition of a creator?
That which something is contingent upon.
A
So
creator
its existence
creates for
depends
purpose.
on. Yeah, we've gone over that. you know,
But you still haven't said
God
what the
be
purpose is, other than
okay,
to create art.
fulfilling. Okay, so let's start off with the ontological
But
argument that
what
the
is it
easiest way
fulfill?
to start.
Who is it fulfilling for?
Everyone.
I mean,
Everyone.
it's this circle. You just keep saying God is God because God is God, and God
Okay.
exists because God
I get
exists.
that. I get where you're
But you have
confused.
no reason. It's like I'm waiting for you to give me a reason to believe you.
I
I'm
gave
waiting for
you a
you to
reason
give
in the
me a
beginning.
reason
I gave you a
for
reason.
me to believe that
I'm
there's a
going.
God.
I
I mean,
gave you
because
several
a
reasons.
God that creates the universe for no other reason than he decided to do something perfect, and this is what he calls perfection, I don't think is very perfect.
Okay.
So
I
that
get
doesn't
that.
sound like a very good reason. So
Okay.
therefore, I have no reason to believe that there's a God. But you keep saying
You
because
have
I
several
said,
reasons, but I will
God
go over
loves
this one
atheists,
with
that
you.
I therefore believe in God.
I get that you believe God loves atheists, and we can get into that in a future podcast.
No,
Um,
again, it's a joke. I don't believe that there is a God. It's a
that
joke. When I
doesn't.
say God loves atheists, I'm just pointing out that if there was a God, it could love atheists because it thinks it's better to not know what you don't know than to assume that you do know what you don't know,
We've been over
which
this
is
a
what
few
you're
different
doing.
ways.
You're assuming you know what you do not know.
No, I've gone over why I believe what I believe. Every point. Now
Yes,
I'm answering this question if you'll let me.
you give me reasons why, but you're still only believing something because you choose to believe it.
I choose to be rational. I choose to follow the
I
logic.
think it's irrational to
Right, and you
believe that
haven't
there's a
said
God
why.
that created the universe because there's no purpose for the universe.
Okay,
It
but that
certainly is
put
not perfect.
okay. Now
It makes no sense.
if you'll let
It
me,
has no function. It has no reason to be.
again, that's
It certainly
circular on
doesn't,
your part.
it doesn't,
That's circular on your part.
if
You don't
it
have
fits some sort of
meaning.
grand plan, there must be a grand plan. How does the grand plan of the universe fit the grand plan of God? I
Okay,
mean, think
so
about it. Why
okay,
would God create something
can I
just to
talk,
create
or
it?
do you want me to just log
You
off?
can, but you keep saying the same
Okay.
thing over and over again.
Okay, look, you're gonna let me talk, or I'm gonna hit leave studio. You understand?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. Now we're gonna start off with the ontological argument. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. God must fulfill
Yeah, that's
that
such a
definition.
sad, just sad, slow argument. It really
Okay.
is.
Okay. It's because you're saying there isn't something that is greater than everything else. There is no greatest.
No, there's no greatness.
Greatest. There's no
Greatest. There's no
greatest.
greatest.
See, that's a problem I encounter with a lot of atheists is that they can't understand absolutes. Okay, there is no such
What?
thing as
What?
first.
Well, what? If there's a greatest,
Hmm.
why?
Of necessity. It's kind of like
Necessity of
something
what?
came rational necessity.
Rational
Okay, that's like
necessity of what?
okay. No, that's it. It's rational necessity. It's kind of you're basically saying the version. It's like me saying X came first. Okay, and you're
That's
saying
like
what
saying the
came before that.
whitest white or the
Right.
blackest black.
Yes, there is the
There's the
blackest.
blackest black out of necessity.
Yes,
There's
there
the
is a
whitest white
there
out of
is
necessity.
yes, there must be
But
the purest,
greatness,
right?
I mean, I understand absolutes. Absolutes are pretty easy to understand.
Good.
But greatness is kind of subjective.
If there's no God, yes,
It's like it's like it's like Donald Trump thinks he's the greatest president that ever existed. That's pretty subjective. But a lot of people
okay.
believe it.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. You're feeding back on yourself. You're arguing that everything is subjective.
Well, no, I'm not repeating. I'm using your words. You're saying
No,
God is the
you're
greatest
trying to
because
redefine
there
the
needs to
words.
be a greatest. If there
There,
wasn't a
if
God, there could be no greatest, and that there needs to be greatest. That's what you said.
okay, I'll slow down for
Am
you.
I wrong?
Is there such a thing as great?
Great is a description.
Okay.
What's great for me is not great for you.
Okay, so you're going to
So,
argue that great is subjective, that, that I'm
mhm,
just as great a baseball player as Joe DiMaggio. Is that a true statement?
your parents might think so.
Okay, so again, you're just going to argue that everything is subjective, and that paints you in the corner we talked about earlier. You box when you
Uh-huh.
start seeing things are subjective, you box yourself in a corner because all your
Okay.
criticism blow up on you. You're saying, because it's just as easy to say, well, I don't think this, I don't think this, and I'm just going to say the same thing. It's subjective. Okay.
Okay.
And then we go back to the might makes right, which is where this argument goes, which is why communism
Okay.
is the way it is. So do you want to say that, I'm just as great a baseball player as Joe DiMaggio, or do you want to say, yeah, Joe DiMaggio is greater than Alejandro?
I think he's a lot better than you.
Great. Is he greater than me? Or just want to play words with me all day? Is that where we are?
The way we define great, the word we created great, the way we define it, yes, Joe is greater than you.
Great. So we understand that greatness is a quality. There is a greatest,
Okay.
right? And that greatest exists of necessity. And then we kind of reverse engineer from there. What would a greatest being do? Why would a greatest being do it? That's where we start. That answers your question.
Why would a greatest being exist?
I already went over of necessity. Now you can go. Now this is another point you
Out of
touched on, which
necessity.
yes, I touched on that because there's two. You've answered this already. All right. Either
Mm-hmm.
the cosmos itself is the uncaused first cause, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or the creator is the uncaused first cause. Either way, you have God. You're just going to argue, if you're going to argue pantheism, you're going to argue the cosmos is the uncaused first cause. You're going to argue that the cosmos is the greatest of all possible things. Okay, so either way, you have God. Unless you go back to arguing the cosmos doesn't really exist. Then you're not
Well,
over that.
you keep insisting a God, and
There's no
you
way.
define what you think God is.
I did. I did define
But
what God is.
But I'm saying, as an atheist, there's a myriad of people say what God is,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
you're basically claiming that either I believe you or I end up here. That's what you're claiming. That's
That's
the
what I've.
punishment for my not believing you.
Mhm.
Because the greatest, most perfect being that ever existed
Mm-hmm.
is so petty that he would send me here for not
Yeah.
believing it
Nothing
exists.
petty about it. If you're there, you
Nothing petty
deserve to be
about it?
there. No, if you're there, you deserve to
Really?
be there. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Again,
You
if
don't think that's petty?
God is perfectly
You don't
great.
think
He
that's
judges
petty?
you.
How many parents have beaten their children and say you deserve it? You had this coming.
Again, you're trying to straw man God again. You're trying to argue that God
Well,
is not
no,
perfectly just.
no, you're trying to scare me into
You should be
believing
scared.
what you're saying
You should be
with
scared.
the threat of hell,
You should be scared,
with
Phil.
no basis of there being a hell. I can give you definitions or reasons why people believe in hell. I can give you definitive reasons why people
You've
believe
given me
there's a
genetic
hell.
fallacy. You've given me
But
genetic
what do
fallacies.
you mean
That's what you've
genetic
done.
fallacy?
You're giving me the origin of the thing as an argument against that thing. It's like saying
No,
I don't like jets because Hitler
I'm
invented
not
them.
arguing against it. You're arguing it exists because it exists.
I
Because God
arguing
that created
exists,
the perfect universe
right?
created this place
Right?
as punishment for
Hmm.
not believing that it created the perfect place,
For rejecting God, for doing evil,
for doing evil. So
right?
what is the purpose of God? Did
What is
God
the
create
purpose?
people out of dirt?
No, I'm not a creationist.
Okay. Did God create humans specifically to believe in God?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question because it seems to be a great one. Okay, we're talking first about abiogenesis. Okay, so the first place to go with abiogenesis is that the existence of life itself is not an accident. It is not of chance. So in that sense, yes, I'm a creationist. The other problem is we have to ask, where did humans come from? And the question is, and that answer is, we are a moral animal. We are a rational animal. We are here to do God's will. Okay? Because we fulfill that purpose. Everything is built to a purpose. What do we do
So
better.
did humans evolve
I'm
into
intelligent.
where
I
we are,
believe in
or did
intelligent
God just
design.
created? I mean, you say humans are a moralistic being to worship God, but how did we make how did we come to be
By design, deliberate
by
design
design?
interference. Yes.
Okay,
Well,
and
like we start off very simply.
was design the process of evolution? Was the process of evolution the design
Okay, I'm gonna
process?
make it another analogy. See if I can I can make this clear. Okay. So let's line up a bunch of cars. Okay, let's just imagine a line of cars. We're gonna have a Model T on one side, and we're gonna have a Veyron on the other side. Okay, and we're gonna have a bunch of cars between them. Now, you're gonna look at the evidence and go, "Oh, clearly by random chance, we started with a Model T, and then 100 years later, we have the Bugatti Veyron." Okay, and I'm gonna
A
look at the
random
same thing, and I'm
chance.
gonna yes, that's what you're arguing. That's
No,
evolution.
I'm not arguing that.
I'm gonna look at them and go, "Wow, clearly at
You're
several
taking you're
intervals."
taking most simplistic example you can think of
All right.
and throw random chance in the front of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not saying anything like that.
Yeah,
That's
you're
just
talking
a
about
creationist
evolution,
argument.
and you're talking about evolution, and that theory was plausible 100 years ago. But the more we learn about biology,
Really
the more
interesting.
absolutely absurd it
You must be
becomes.
reading very different biology books than I am.
Okay, then you can tell me conceptually how making random mistakes makes things better. If I were to swap out random notes of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, would I be improving Beethoven's Ninth Symphony? I just play random notes differently. I take every
Is
third note and change it.
Beethoven's symphony a biological
You're it.
self-replicating thing?
Oh, so you're telling me biological self-replicating things just pop into being for no reason, from nothing, with no help. That's what you're arguing.
Over the process of evolution,
Right,
yeah, they have.
which says that if we make enough
It did.
mistakes, things get better.
It didn't one day. It didn't one day just show
Right,
up.
right. I know that, and we can expect the universe to
It's like
go in and
numbers.
out of.
Computers. Do you think computers came out of nothing? Did you think
No, they were
one day
designed
somebody decided
intelligently.
I'm going to make a computer?
They came about through intelligent design. The
At
computer
what
I'm
point?
using to talk to you
At what
is
point?
intelligent
At
design.
what point did somebody decide to make a computer because they were smart? They decided I'm smart enough to make a computer. I'm going to make a computer.
Well, there was the necessity of breaking the German code, which was a huge effort on the part of the British. They made a movie about it. Are you familiar with it?
Hmm.
Okay, so the Germans basically created a very primitive computer to encode things, and we had to create
Was
a
the
much
abacus a
bigger.
computer?
The abacus was basic,
Is
but
this a computer?
it's very basic, but yes. So we built off of it intelligently. We
So
started with our count. We started counting with
we
our
started
fingers.
with a computer and we designed a computer with it.
We started with simplicity, and then we intelligently built on that. Yes, out of necessity, out of
Out of
emulation of
necessity.
God.
So if a biological form, say a
Right,
moth,
right,
lives in a place where black and white trees,
right,
lives very peacefully, and then
right,
industry comes in and soot makes all the trees black,
right.
and all of a sudden all these black and white moths are killed.
Yes, I
But
read that.
because of a mutation, some
Right,
of them were black and
right,
some of them were white. The white
mhm,
ones, of course, also got eaten, but the black ones survived
right,
and they reproduced. And lo and behold, most of the moths that used to be black and white were now black.
right. I
That's
get
the
that.
process of evolution. Things change, things adapt.
To natural selection, which comes from fine tuning,
No to environmental conditions
which came from,
and ecological niches.
which came
I
from.
mean, you're just throwing God in front of that still. I mean,
No,
you're just
I'm showing
you're
you how
throwing
God
God in
solves
front of
problems
everything. No, you're not showing anything. You're just saying God did it. Therefore,
mhm,
everything that happened is because of God.
because God is the
That's all
answer.
you're doing.
Okay, you're arguing there is no answer.
Correct. Well, I'm not arguing that there's no answer. I'm arguing that we don't have the answer, but you're presuming that you do.
You don't have the answer because
And
you've
you're
rejected.
presuming that if I don't believe your answer, I'll go here.
Do you have a better answer? No. You already said you don't
Do I
have
have a
an
better
answer.
answer?
Yes. Okay. So the problem is that you're actually proving my
I got
point on a
lots of
different.
different answers. Whether
I'm
the better
answering.
or not is
Okay.
up to,
So
interpretation.
Okay, so again, we
I've
have
got different answers,
on a
but none of my
philosophical.
answers punish anybody.
Okay, on a purely philosophical level, I have answers. Okay, and you don't. Okay, what happens to tribes that don't have answers in the
Well,
face of tribes that do have answers?
I have my own answers. You have your answers.
We already went over that. No, you don't. You have subjective answers. You have opinions. You have
Yours is pretty
guesses.
subjective and an opinion too.
No,
Just
it's not.
because you say it's
Rational.
absolute doesn't make it as you think it's rational. I
You
don't think
haven't
it's
shown why
rational
you don't think it's rational because
because it's born out of ignorance.
how
You
is
don't know,
it
therefore
ignorance if I have answers and you don't? How am I the ignorant one? You're saying you don't have answers. I have answers, and you're calling me ignorant.
I
That
have
doesn't work.
answers that are
You're
just
the
as
one who's
good.
ignorant because you
I
don't
have
have answers.
answers
That's
that
how
are
it
just
works.
as good.
No, they're not. They
You
don't
didn't
answer.
give it any answers.
They don't
You say there's a
explain
God
anything.
because there has to be God, and God
Right.
did it for art.
Right, and we already went over that. You said that God is creation and there's no reason. Okay, just is.
I
That's
didn't say
you.
that. You said that.
That's what it has to be. All right.
Why?
There can't be anything if it's pantheism. It just traces back to the universe. There's no reason.
Exactly. There's no reason. You said it.
Right.
You said
Right.
it right there. There's no
If
reason.
pantheism, that is
Does there need to
your
be a reason?
paradigm. Yes,
Why?
because itself is the same reasons. Why is there truth? You'd be saying, is there reason? I don't think there's reason. Well, you're trying to reason your way out of reason. It's not going to work.
Let me ask you this. If humans become extinct,
Right?
will God still exist?
Oh yeah,
Why?
because God can't not exist, and God is not contingent on our existence. Our existence, excuse me.
Well, that's obvious since it took billions of years for us to come about.
Okay, so
again, the question is, why? Was it bored?
I explained that. We went back to answering what is the greatest of all conceivable. What is that than which nothing greater can be conceived? Part of that is an artist
But that
who
doesn't
creates magnificent creation.
answer
Beautiful.
the question, why?
Yes, it does.
Why do humans need to exist?
Why?
I mean, obviously, the universe went fine for billions of years without humans. Why do humans need to exist?
To do good. There can't be
Can
any
no other
good
creature
in the universe.
do good?
Yes, there's no other creature on Earth that does good.
There's no more violent, destructive creature on Earth than humans.
Okay, we went over that. That is a subjective opinion. You'd have to argue that there is such a thing
Really?
as good and evil, and you
Do you
can't.
think polluting your own drinking water is subjective?
Is that something God would want?
Subjectively bad?
Is that something God would want?
Apparently, it's all part of God's plan.
Okay, so that goes. Okay, so again, you're strawmanning God. You're trying to postulate the evil God hypothesis. I get that.
I know.
That's a lot of
I'm just
atheists.
saying. You're saying God had humans to be morally perfect.
We're going to work on polluting our drinking water because you brought that up, and I think that's a wonderful example.
That's just an example. I could give you 1,000 examples of how humans are destroying not only the environment they live in, but killing off all the other animals
that
live around us.
I get that. I heard you.
So I mean, I'm not sure why you think, and it's mostly religious. It's mostly people who believe in a God that is doing all this damage.
No, that's
I'm not sure.
China. Factually, that's China is a big polluter, and they don't believe in God.
Really?
So you can't make that argument.
Have you seen Lake Erie? Well, it's better now.
The statistics,
you could throw
the hard
match on it and light on fire.
The hard data is that atheism doesn't solve the problem of pollution. Okay, because we look at China, and it's a great example.
Humans are the cause of pollution.
Right. And
atheism doesn't solve anything. I don't what your hang up with atheism is. Atheism is just a response to you claiming that there's a God.
I went over that talking point for the last, I don't know, hour. Okay, if you're going to go back and just
pretend atheism has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
If no one believed in God, things would be pretty much the same because people operate under politics, not under religion. They kill each other over religion.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so
I will be right back.
Okay, so we are going to get back to polluting the drinking water. You think God wants us to pollute the drinking water. You think God likes atheists, and you're definitely pro-Islam. You've let those things slip. Okay, so we're gonna get over that. I look to the
Talk
definition
about
of God.
straw man. Gee
These are
willikers.
all things you said, and these are all
No,
things you
I'm
have.
I'm anti all religion.
Hmm.
I don't think there's a God.
Okay,
And therefore I don't think God likes atheists because there's nothing to like atheists.
okay,
Let me repeat that. I don't think like any religions.
okay. Are you still against the Crusades?
Muslim is Islam is a religion.
Are
It's
you
one of the ones I don't
against
like.
the Crusades?
I don't think there's a God. I find no
Are
reason to believe there's a God.
do you
So
think?
therefore, I can't think God likes atheists because there's no God to like atheists.
Okay,
That's
are
what I
you
keep
against
saying.
Are you against the Crusades?
Am I against the Crusades?
Yes.
I had nothing to do with the Crusades. What do you mean
Are
am I
you against
against
them?
them?
Do you think the Crusades were a bad idea? Do you
I think
think?
the people who carried out the Crusades were horrible people that did devastating things
Mhm.
against other horrible people doing devastating things.
Okay, you only get to pick here. You're either on the side of I'm
What do you mean?
Zoroastrian, okay? I'm Zoroastrian, so I don't have a dog in the fight. But you're gonna have to choose between the Crusades and the things the Crusades were against. You can't say I am against the bombing of Germany mid-century and then say I'm the good guy. Okay? That's just historical fact. Now, I'm answering the question. We're going to go back to the ontological argument. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. Would a maximally great being want me to poison my own drinking water? No, I don't think so. Therefore, it becomes a religious prohibition to pollute drinking water, which is something you basically find in Zoroastrianism and any sensible religion. Okay, so you, on the other hand, want to argue, no, no, God would be totally cool. So, all right, obviously, you have a very different idea about
You're
what a
very good at
greatest
putting
being is.
words in my mouth, by the way.
Because
You're exceptionally good at putting words in my mouth.
okay. So we'll ask the question again: do you think God wants us to pollute our own drinking water?
I don't think there's a God.
I asked the question, so you don't think there's a God, so you don't think it
Well,
matters.
you're
So,
asking if it's something I don't think exists
right?
wants to do something.
Okay.
That question makes no sense.
Okay.
That's
So
like
that
asking
goes.
me, do I think Santa Claus wants little boys to pull little girls' pigtails?
Okay. I think that's
That's what you're asking
perfectly.
me.
Well,
You're
I think
asking me
it's
if I
very.
think something that I don't think exists
Mhm.
wants something.
Okay.
So I'm starting
So
off with the premise of what you're asking. Do I think something I don't exist? No, I don't think that thing exists. Therefore,
okay.
I don't think it wants anything
Okay, well, you were
because
pretty
there's
clear
nothing there
earlier
to
that you
want.
think God wants war. I mean, you think religions is, just this
No, I
destructive
didn't
thing.
say that. I
Okay,
didn't say God
so
wants war.
so you don't
Again, I keep
know.
repeating,
Hmm.
that I don't think there is a God.
Right, and
I
I
have no
get that.
reason to believe that there's God.
I've given you several.
So every time you say, "Do I think God wants?"
Hmm.
then you take that and you twist it. See, you believe in God. You
Okay,
just said
yeah,
God decided this. So
that's what I do.
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop giving you that ammunition
Hmm.
by just taking everything you say. Do I think God wants?
Hmm.
No, I don't think there's a God to want anything.
Okay, so we'll just go with God is that
Do I
then with
think
nothing
people want to
greater.
poison water? No, but people are greedy and they
Okay,
don't care what damages other people
right, because
as long
if
as it
there is
makes
no
them
God,
money.
it doesn't matter. It's just what you can get away with. Okay, so
Christians are
I'm
the
a
ones
theist.
doing it.
What?
Christians are doing it.
Okay,
People doing it believe in God.
all right. So
They
this
do it because they don't
unfortunately.
care.
Now, I am going to start off and I'm going to say, okay, so what we have here is God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. Okay, so would God want me to poison my own drinking water? No. A maximally great being would not want me to poison my own drinking water. So I have a religious basis for what I do. Okay, now let's imagine the same question.
Okay.
I can poison the drinking water of all the poor
I
people.
have a self-preservation reason for doing what I do. I don't
That's
poison the water because it would be bad for me.
That's right, except powerful people exist. Okay. So let
Well,
me
other
think of this
people poison
question
my
as
water, so
let me
I
think
have no
about this
control
as
over that.
an atheist. Okay. Would giving people a vaccine that will make me very, very rich, is that a good thing? Well, wow, so I'll make more money. You know what? Oh
Be
wow.
good for you.
Yeah, it'd be very good for me. Okay. there's no God here, so that's what I'm going to do. There's no hell, so that's what I'm going to do. It ends
Okay.
at the grave, so that's what I'm going to do. That's where you are.
Okay. So I donate blood.
I'm happy for you.
Now, do I donate blood because I think that's what God wants me to do? Do I donate blood because it makes me money? Does it make me rich? Does it give me fame? What is my benefit for
You're virtue
donating
signaling.
blood as an atheist?
You're virtue signaling. You're saying, see what a good person I
Well,
am.
you're saying that you're saying that God has okay. Let me put it this way: I step on an ant. Okay,
Right?
I don't. You've got something to throw at everything I say
All right, I've been doing this for 10,
because
15
you're
years.
full of catchphrases and philosophical words that you love using. I'm not trying to say I'm a better person. I'm not trying to say I'm a great person. I'm saying I exist because I'm lucky to exist. I don't need a God to explain why I exist. I do things that I think are good, not because of rewards and not because of fear. I don't worry about hell because I don't think there is a hell. I have no reason to believe there's a God. Evolution answers pretty much every question about the existence of life that I can come up with, and we're learning more all the time. I mean, that the idea that evolution has been debunked is ridiculous on its face because it's proved over and over again. Now we're learning more and more things, and some of the things that Darwin had said have not been disproved so much as been just shown to be incorrect. But yeah, it was 150 years ago. It's amazing what he did get correct. I don't need there to be a God. I don't fear what happens to me when I die. I didn't exist before I was conceived. I was not aware before I was born. When I die, the mechanics that make me who I am will cease to function, and I will cease to exist other than in the memories of the people that I knew. I'm not afraid of that. I don't need there to be a God. I don't need religion to be moral. Obviously, many people are very immoral because of their religion. There are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different versions of Christianity alone. Every person that has ever existed has a different idea of what God is than you do. No two people have ever agreed fully on what God is, what God's purpose is, what God's intentions are. You are giving God intention because you think there's a God. I see no intention because I see no God. I was a designer, so I understand what design is. And if you think an intelligent designer created life, then you must think God is a horrible designer because the flaws are just too numerous to mention. You assume God is real. You think atheism is some sort of defiance against God, but it's not. It's a defiance against you. And that's what you're taking
Tom,
issue with.
that's great. You know what? Scott, you can let him talk for a while because, it's 2 hour mark and I gotta get back to my real life. So, Tom, you can keep making speeches and assume I'm just gonna listen to him later. That's awesome. Scott, always a pleasure. We can do this again with the future. We can talk about life after death. That'd be a great subject. I think Tom would have fun. He's got the hell in the background. I think that works great for me. Scott,
Okay.
see you next time on Facebook. Okay. Bye.
All right, brother. Thanks for jumping
Bye
in,
bye,
man.
Alejandro.
Bye bye. Wow. So sorry I had to run out and do
Oh,
worky
no
stuff.
worries.
I feel like I missed out on some juicy stuff, but I'm gonna definitely
Well,
go back and check it out. So yeah, so you got to meet Alejandro, and you kind of got a taste of what I was kind of telling you about his arguments for his God. And my whole thing is that if we argue naturalism, like if you want me to grant you that there must have been a cause of some endpoint, some starting point that doesn't have a beginning but is a necessary thing, right? A non-contingent, as he would say it. Then I would just appeal to the nature of reality, which kind of gets rid of the moral problem, because hey, a blind nature has no moral interest in our well-being. It's not personal, right? And
Yeah.
then you don't have to worry about the hidden God problem because there's nothing to
Well, you don't have
hide.
to worry about this.
Yeah, you don't have to
This
worry
becomes a
about
non-issue.
that. Yeah, yeah, hell, heaven, all of those sort of
I mean,
things
the
like
funny
that.
thing
So,
is, it's
mhm.
like your choices are either God or pantheism, and if you believe in pantheism, you still believe in God. Like, I can't win. I was like, it's like free will. Your choices are this or this, and either way, you're choosing this
Yeah.
because it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, that's the Pascal wager, and I kind of like your answer where you're like, well, I don't trust philosophy. And that's a kind of a good point because if you think about it, philosophy is very conceptual
They
and it's
they think
very
too much.
abstract. Yeah, to think too deeply about things that may not even be an issue, right? It's just kind of
Exactly.
mental masturbation.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It means you spend your life thinking about something, you can come up with very strong opinions about that something, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean it means anything.
Right, right, right. We could be a brain in a vat. We
So,
could be in the matrix. There's so many options out there besides God and besides no God that
yeah.
who
But I
knows
made
and who
I don't
cares?
know if you were here for this or not, but I made the joke, you know, basically saying, all religions are made up, and God, if there's a God, it likes atheists because atheists didn't, atheists looked at the evidence and decided I'm not going to believe,
Hmm.
and everyone who believed something wrong, and God hated that.
Right.
And then he repeats like 500 times, "You said God loves atheists." Like, it was a joke, man.
What
Just
God,
get over it.
God. Yeah, the deflection, he's trying way too hard to be right. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
that's the whole point of a thought experiment. Here's one thing and that really blew my mind. One time I had Alejandro on and we were talking about morality, and he was saying, well, without God you wouldn't be moral, that whole argument. So
yeah,
I was like, well, let's look at it this way. Let's do a thought experiment.
yeah.
I
Well,
said,
I did that
suppose.
too, and then he goes, "You're virtue signaling." I'm like, you know,
Oh, you
if
did
if
the
I say I'm moral if I say I'm moral because of no reason, I'm virtue signaling. But if I say I'm moral because of God, I'm righteous. I mean, it's again,
yeah,
you know,
that's
he
yeah, might makes right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, millions of Jews died at the hand of the Nazis who were just obeying, orders, you
well,
know.
here's I didn't use this on him because that didn't come up, but I exist because Hitler existed. Had Hitler not existed, I would not exist because my family was Jewish and they came to
Mm,
this country to escape Europe. In fact, my father was put in it wasn't quite the concentration camps. It was, he got out,
mm,
they got out early enough where it hadn't gotten horrible. But
mm-hmm.
he was headed to the camps. Um, so I exist because Hitler existed.
Right.
That's part of God's plan.
Right, right. The moral
An,
problem, the
an,
problem of
an
evil.
out, an outspoken atheist exists because God's plan had Hitler so that I could exist.
Yeah. But then they'll say, "Oh, well, that wasn't God's plan.
Yeah,
That was humans' free
yeah,
will. God
yeah,
just gives man the reign to." But on the other side, the other part they don't understand is they'll also say, "Well, everything that exists is according to God's will." So which one is it? Is it God's
yeah.
will, or it's just
Well,
I don't know.
that's why I kind of had to go on. I had to go steamroller on him because he kept basically insinuating that I believe in God because everything I'm saying mentions God. Yeah, I mentioned poisoning the water. And he said, "Does God want
Mhm.
you to poison the water? Does God think that's a good idea?" So finally, I just said, "Look, I don't think there's a God. Therefore, God didn't have a thought on the matter."
Right, right. I mean,
So I don't think God thought anything because I don't think there's a God to think.
so what do you
Which,
think the problem is there? Like the bridge problem. Like it's so hard for people who have different views, and it seems like you're not really saying people shouldn't have their beliefs. I think what your point is that it's fine to have your beliefs, but don't force them on other people, or you don't have to,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
don't justify your actions because you think there's a giant being that's gonna, or eternal being that's gonna send you here if you do the
Hmm.
wrong thing.
Hmm.
Believe and do what you think is right for the right reasons. Like people who go off and like God hates Jews, God hates gays, God hates queers. They're going off
Hmm.
on God, everything God hates. It's like, does God hate or do you hate?
Right,
Because it
right.
sounds like you got your own particular God that hates. I mean, this person's saying it's a loving God, and you're saying God hates everybody. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the old, it's the old discussion. The whole point
yeah,
of the whole channel that I have is to try to build some kind of bridge where people can at least understand each other, and have open discussions about these things, which is fine. I mean, people can hold on to their beliefs at the end of the day, but when people start charging you with being immoral
yeah.
because you don't believe the way they do, then we
Well,
have, we're not getting anywhere. It's not
yeah.
very productive, I don't think.
It's like my sister, and actually most of my friends who believe, um, are very good because they basically have the attitude is I believe God that Jesus taught this was good behavior, and I follow what he says. I believe he was God, but I believe that he was a good example,
Hmm.
and that's what I follow. They
Hmm.
don't say, if you don't believe it too, you're going to hell.
Right.
They say, this is what I believe, and this is what I do with my beliefs. They don't
Hmm.
say, you need to believe this, or you're going to go here.
Right.
And that's
Right.
that's why I hate religion, because too many religious people, they say, God wants me to, earn lots of money, or they every excuse they use
Hmm.
God,
Yeah.
and they condemn other people because of God. And I say, worry about your own damn self.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I'm an atheist, why should it bother him that I'm an atheist?
Right.
But
Right.
he's saying, atheists do evil things. The evil in the world exists because of atheists. Like, really?
Mm,
Seriously? Like, communism. Like, yeah, that's a political stance, not a religious stance.
right. 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 And even some communist nations like North Korea are theists. They worship their dictators
Dictator.
like their
Yeah.
gods. They're
Yeah.
they're kind of like,
And a lot of Trumpers, that's what they do.
yeah, oh yeah.
Because Trump is a dictator. He's a failed dictator. He can never
Hmm.
get the support to be the dictator he wants to be.
Hmm.
But he gets just the same love and respect as Putin and Kim Jong Il or Young or whatever his
Yeah,
name is.
it's so obvious that in today's world, people ignore, issues and evidence and facts, and they just worship personalities, and this cult of personality. And this is really, I think, is a failure of just understanding how epistemology works, sound epistemology, understanding, logical thinking, um, and how to actually figure these things out, figure out what is just your opinion and your belief that you want to believe versus a fact. No, people conflate these two things all the time. And that's why we have cult of personality among not just religion, but in politics and everything else. People just are driven by pure emotion. And it's really sad, and it's kind of scary if you think about it. Like the world is just kind of descending into this, it's like skepticism be damned. Like it's like, I think Daniel Dennett called it, people just want to believe in belief, have something to believe in.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's true or not, or whether you can find out whether it makes sense or not.
Grasping at straws.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a
And
really sad thing.
I've always kind of had the I don't want to call it a philosophy, but I've always leaned towards, if I don't have a reason to believe it, I don't believe it, because I
Right.
don't need to believe anything. I could
Right.
disbelieve everything if I wanted to.
Hmm.
So I don't decide. I mean, there are things that I've decided to believe, but I acknowledge. You know,
Right.
it's
Right. There you
like
go.
certain people. I believe that's a good person because it behooves me to think they're a good person. I don't necessarily have evidence, but my life is better if I believe these things. But believing, you
I
know,
mean, I've seen interviews with some really, you know, great scientists, people that,
oh,
you know,
look at Francis Collins.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
a brilliant man who, you know, basically not co-authored, but the Human Genome Project,
yeah, yeah,
and he
he was the
still
head of
thinks
that stuff.
it's yeah, he thinks God did it all. I'm like, really? I just
But the good thing is he admits it's a matter of faith, not fact.
yeah,
He's very good
exactly.
about that. He didn't go in the
Yeah,
lab
and
and let it, yeah.
yeah, and he's what I like my sister. I consider a good Christian. Like he believes things I think are kind of wacky, but he doesn't proselytize. I mean,
Hmm.
he does when he's asked to, and he does get asked quite a bit to proselytize. But there's difference between being asked to do it and then just deciding to do it everywhere you go, which
Hmm.
I'm guessing Alejandro does. I never really got into what he actually, the details of what he believes because he's so stuck on God exists because God has to exist,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't I don't buy it.
Yeah, what I usually do, and I think that was the topic of our last discussion me and Alejandro had was I always kind of flip it around, I'm like, well, what is the absolute primary immutable referent that you use to know that God exists? Like, what are you grounding that in? Because if you say you're grounding it in God, then you're just being circular because he's always talking
Yeah,
about how people are circular.
yeah,
And so I'm like, so you're saying you believe in God because of God. That's circular. So you
yeah,
need to kind of go outside of that. So what I'm asking you is, what do you ground that
yeah,
in? And then he'll say something like, oh, well, I ground it in logic. And I'm like, fine, but
yeah,
what do you ground your logic in? That's what I'm getting at. How do you know you're being rational? What is your primary, immutable,
yeah.
absolute,
Because he
unchanging, capital T truth
yeah
that you're referring to when
because
you
he
say
knows.
God? Yeah, and it always goes back to circular. And I'm like, well, that's my whole point is that
Yeah,
you're just like you're pointing out to the atheists or the naturalists that we're being circular. Like he accused me of, well, you're saying that nature exists because of nature existing, and it's like that circular. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm kind of basing that on the fact that I exist.
yeah.
Like, well, how do you know you exist? Because we're having this conversation. We wouldn't be if I didn't exist. I couldn't
Well,
be.
and I was very clear because he
Hmm.
tried to do that to me, and I said, I
Yeah,
go, I exist.
yeah. Yeah, keep it real, man. Like let's be if you're gonna play that game. So this is the thing. If they want to play that game,
Yeah,
it doesn't go one
yeah.
street. We're all in the same boat. We can all play that game with each other, and
And
it's all mental math.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't think he liked my answer on the afterlife, or he was listening because when he left, he said we talked about the afterlife, and Tom would enjoy that. Like I already told you,
Yeah.
he believes this is the afterlife,
For
and
you,
I
yeah.
told him, I didn't exist before I was conceived. I wasn't
Mm,
aware before I was born, and after I die, the biomechanics that make me who I am will cease to function, and I
mhm.
will go back to the elements that
Yeah.
created me.
And
I
that's a
don't
beautiful
need
thing.
an afterlife.
Right.
If that's the end, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But
You know. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
you need an afterlife to exist in order to justify believing that a good eternal God is going to give you heaven and everyone else is going to get this.
Yeah. It's just another system of sticks and carrots.
Yeah,
Always,
but
a lot of Christians hate when I say that
yeah,
is they'll say,
yeah,
"Oh, well, you can't say that. And I'm like, yeah, yes, I can,
Yeah.
because your own book says if I
Yeah.
do the good
And
thing, I get the good, I get the
yeah.
carrot, and if I do the bad thing, I get the stick, which is the
Yeah.
hell. So how is that? How is that? How am I wrong for that? Well, you're supposed to love God
Yeah.
because of just who He is and in His appreciate. Well,
Yeah.
then why are you dangling a stick in front of me? Then
Yeah.
why are you dangling a carrot in front of me? What is
Yeah.
the point in that if it's all about,
Yeah.
you know, they
And
can't get
I,
around that.
I don't know what your experience is. Do you find Alejandro very condescending?
Yes. Yes. He's he at one time he told me that he wrote the contingency argument.
Yeah.
He himself wrote the
Yeah.
contingency. It's like a
Yeah.
2,000-year-old Greek argument from thinkers way before
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And he said he wrote it. And so we always used to laugh about that, like, oh wow, he keeps on saying that he wrote the contingency argument. Like, what? You've got to have an ego to
Yeah.
really pull that off. So,
Yeah. He has an ego. I mean,
I
we all have egos, but it was his insistence on, I believe in God because I'm rational, which is basically
Mhm.
saying you're irrational. That's why you don't believe.
Right. Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the bottom
dude,
line. Yeah, he comes off that way to me. I mean, that's my opinion, is that he can be condescending. I don't know if he means to or what, but
I'm sure he
I
doesn't
don't
mean to,
care.
but
I
you,
really
you,
don't
you
care.
can't.
The one thing that I've decided to do with when I talk to these people is I give them whatever they want. If they want to feel like I'm stupid and that my worldview makes no sense, I'm like, great, that's fine. But now you have to still convince me, why should I adopt yours?
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
I'm stupid as fuck. I'm just a stupid Southern boy.
Yeah.
That's all. I'll grant you all of that. Now, can we get past that now and just talk about the evidence?
Yeah.
I mean, because that at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, you know.
But I thought it was funny that I said, why did God create the universe? What reason? Because he had to, because he had to create something perfect. Like, but why?
Right.
And it's because the concept. Like, what's the concept? It's art. Like, so the universe is art.
Well, see,
Like,
yeah, you see, that's the way that I play that argument with the naturalistic argument, is to say, because I'll say that, well, the universe exists. It could be eternal for all we know, or it could have been the baby of multiple universes that came
yeah,
before it or
yeah,
whatever. And they'll say, well, then why does that exist? What was the intention behind it? And I'll say, well, I don't know. But what about God? Why does he want to create? Turn it right around on them.
yeah,
Oh, well, he wanted to, because, well, who fine-tuned God to want to create stuff
yeah,
and make artwork out of the universe? Who made God that way? They can't answer that. They'll just say, well, that's just how God is. That's just his nature. Well, then stop special pleading, because I can just turn around to you and say that's just the nature of reality to exist. That's just the nature of reality. That's my God, nature of reality. So we're both just playing now a semantics game. The
yeah,
only difference is mine is more parsimonious, because I don't have all these added ingredients. Infinite wisdom, infinite love,
yeah,
all of this
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, things exist because things exist. There was no
Yeah.
reason. It just
Yeah. Why
does.
does God
Well, there
exist?
has to be a reason. No, there has to be a reason in order for you to believe that there's a God. And you don't know what that reason is, but there has to be a reason for there to be God. Where what I believe, there doesn't need to be a reason, it just is, and I accept it.
Yeah, they can make the same argument for their God, so they're just special pleading for their, belief. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, just admit it. See,
Well, there.
my whole thing is just admit what you're doing
Yeah,
is you're just arguing for what you want to
yeah,
feel good belief.
yeah. They want a reason for their existence.
Hmm.
That's what they're really arguing. They want there to be a reason why they exist. And
Yeah.
the only way to have a reason for my existence would be to have a loving God that created me special.
Yeah, I'm special. You know,
And
me, I'm
for me to not believe them is very threatening, because that undermines their need. You know, if I can convince them that we don't exist for a reason, then basically that cuts loose their God. And if if they don't have their God, what do they have? They exist for nothing.
yeah,
Life
and
loses
it's
all meaning.
this self-importance concept. It's this thing that Jesus died for me. It's
Yeah,
all about me. They cannot fathom that the world is just random and that they came out of a random reality. um Kind of reminds me of this video. I'm going to try to share it real quick. It's just a really short thing. It's kind of funny. Hold on just a second.
I guess my background choice is good.
Yeah, it works out great, you know. So this
Because I had just
apologist.
like I had just a generic office background. I
Uh-huh.
thought this would be fun, but he played
Oh
into
yeah.
that pretty good. And it was
Oh
great to
heck
be able to
yeah.
go, so I'm going here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're going there. So we need to talk about that.
It wasn't just this massless, amorphous kind of general love, but not for anybody specific. No, when Christ died on the cross, he loved me, Tyler Vella. Right? He died specifically and canceled my record of debt against him. Right? He propitiated God towards me. Right? God is actually propitious. He is satisfied. That's what propitious means. The wrath against the debt has been turned away. Right? On something like Will's view, the wrath has not been turned away. Right? Unless you want to be a universalist, the wrath has not been turned away because people are going to experience wrath in hell.
Pretty much, I'm
So funny.
special.
So
God
special.
exists, therefore I'm special.
Just for me. He did
And
it just for
if
me.
if God didn't exist, I wouldn't be special anymore.
That's right. That's so sad when you put it that way. It's like, oh man. But that's really what it comes down to. I mean, for a lot of
See,
people, it's just,
I had a good upbringing. I had parents that told me I wasn't special all the time.
yeah. Yeah, this
Oh,
whole thing
gee.
about self-esteem. How are we helping people by telling them they should feel good about themselves? No, feel good about what you could be.
Yeah.
Then you have something to shoot for. Because if you're a piece of shit, you shouldn't feel good for yourself. But
But it
yeah,
just amazes me how often they attack atheism as if it's a threat. And I said many times, atheism is nothing. Atheism is just a response.
yeah,
If I don't know if you were here for this. I said, so if nobody ever believed in God, never thought about God, no, the whole idea of God never existed, you would have been the one person to realize that there was a God and a hell. And he said, yes. I was like,
yeah,
okay. Well, I'm glad that you're
yeah.
so sure of yourself.
Basically what they're arguing for is that they're omniscient. You know, they're saying that they know for a
Oh
fact
yeah,
what the true ontology of reality is. They
yeah,
know the mind of God. They knew what he was doing. They know all these things, but they're doing it from their comfort of their armchair.
yeah,
It's like what I respect about scientists is that they actually get out there and have to put the work in. They have to actually
yeah.
connect the dots. They're just not
Well,
sitting back making
yeah.
claims.
The thing I respect about scientists, and the reason why I can't be one, is they recognize that you can get just as famous for disproving someone disproving a theory as discovering a theory.
Mhm.
So when they put forth something, they're pretty sure it's correct because they know they're going to get ripped a new one if they're wrong. So
Oh yeah, and
and
it takes a lot of
and there's a
guts.
whole lineup of people who are looking to rip them a new one. I mean, there's
I love
people
that
who do
story.
line up to tear them apart.
I love that story about Albert Einstein. He, when he was crafting, the theory of general relativity, and part of what that theory entailed was that time was physical, that time could bend, and all the physicists were like, that's just a huge contradiction. Even the philosophers, everybody was like, it's just a logical contradiction. Time isn't a thing. Time is a concept. It's a measurement. So when you say time can bend, you're just kind of being wacky right now. And then where's your evidence? And then, it just didn't make any sense. And he stuck to his guns, and he had the mathematics down, and he showed them the mathematics. They're like, well, I can show mathematics that proves that totally wrong. But just on the face of it, it's just
Yeah.
absurd anyway. So the whole thing was just dismissed, and until someone actually came along and proved it with experimental evidence, and then they were just all refuted in one day. And it was like, it took a lot of guts for him to stick to his guns, because he was really being destroyed by people. Like, they were just like showing him it was ridiculous, that the math only works if under these particular frameworks. They don't really work. Like, it's too
Yeah.
philosophical and weird. It's like, but there's brilliant scientists that can actually discover things about reality by actually thinking outside the box and doing this. But then on the other
Well,
hand, a lot of scientists can make a lot of weird, wacky stuff that never comes to
yeah.
fruition. Now
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little
I
story
mean,
about
string
me.
theories is still
Yeah, string
fairly
theory. They say
controversial.
that
I mean,
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
the funny thing about science is religion led to philosophy, philosophy led to science, and science is, in a way, religion because people believe things that aren't necessarily true because they want to believe them, because they think they have a reason to believe them. The difference is that's where religion stops.
Mhm.
Philosophy never stops. They think it, if it just keep thinking about it. Just never stop thinking about it. Science keeps working on it until it has a solution, either yes or no.
Mhm.
Like the Higgs boson. I mean, that was conceived of like I think in the 60s or 70s. And I what Higgs' first name, but it's like you're nuts. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's
Yep.
completely impossible. Never. It's not going to be a real thing. And in 2015,
Mhm.
oh,
Mhm.
there it is. Oh, what do you know? He was right.
Yeah. Prediction. A prediction was made. So that's the thing. They can make testable, novel, testable predictions,
Yeah,
and that counts as evidence for something. And the funny thing
yeah,
is that it's a theory will never explain itself, though.
yeah,
Like, you'll never get a theory to explain itself. So a theory is only going to work within a framework. It's not going to go outside of its framework to explain itself.
yeah,
But yet other people come along. It's kind of like Newtonian physics versus relativity and quantum mechanics.
yeah,
Um, it's not that Newton was wrong necessarily. It's just that he had a particular framework with which he was
yeah,
working within.
yeah,
And then quantum mechanics kind of like took it a little deeper
yeah,
to kind of show you that that's true, but it's not absolutely true.
yeah,
Like, there's other perspectives, other frameworks we can talk about
yeah.
reality in, right?
Well,
One,
you know what I
mm,
say whenever anybody tells me evolution is a theory, I say, yeah, so is gravity.
so is gravity. That's right. That's right. That's right. But at least evolution and gravity has testable predictions that can be
Yeah,
made. Like,
yeah,
they can
and that's the thing
measure
of it. Yeah,
the mass of the moon
yeah,
and say, well, if our theory is true, then
yeah.
things should drop at this rate on the
And,
moon. And sure enough,
and and that's what people don't understand about scientific theory. It's
hmm
like you don't know absolutely how it works. True. A theory is something that you know generally how it works, and you can use that understanding to predict what will happen. You don't have to understand how gravity works to the nth degree. You don't have to, you don't have to know exactly, because we don't know exactly how gravity works. It's still a puzzle to us. And that 95% of the universe that we don't know about has a lot to do with why we don't know, because we know that there's dark matter because there's gravity, or there's there's gravity that isn't accounted for by anything. So we know that there's something that we can't see that's causing gravity. But the gravity and evolution, the idea of the theory is that we use that theory to predict what will happen, and when it happens, it proves the theory. But religious people, I don't know if they just refuse to understand that, or just can't wrap their mind, or just assume, well, God made it that way. So,
Well, they don't trust themselves to understand stuff, and therefore they don't trust anyone else. So they're very suspicious of people that think like that. They believe in old books because they're old, and they believe in religious authority, and so that's what they mainly um are married to and identify with, no matter what the evidence is for or against something. In fact, a lot of these people will look at the fact that science sometimes overthrows their old theories in light of
yeah,
new evidence. They see that as a
yeah,
weakness. They see
yes,
that as, see, that
yeah,
proves
they
that
were wrong.
science is full of shit, because now they changed their mind. And it's like, dude, that's what you're fucking supposed to do. If you get
Yeah,
new evidence, you're supposed to
yes,
change your mind. You're not supposed to stick to it. And see,
yeah,
they value that. They value not changing your mind and just being stuck in this, belief. They love belief.
yeah.
And
And
science makes
when you
conclusions.
point to religion having done that, it's like, Galileo is a perfect example. He was a heretic because he said things that were impossible. They went against God's plan. They went against what they knew God had done.
Hmm.
And then eventually they had to accept it. They had to, because it was reality. It was proven. They couldn't deny it anymore. And then they said, see, it's all part of God's plan.
And
God did it on purpose.
and see, they think that they would say, someone like Tom or Scott, that they would be, well, they just reject God. They don't believe God. They don't trust God. No, it's not that we don't trust God. We don't trust you.
Yeah,
Because if God can speak for himself, if
yeah,
he's all that powerful, and he knows what's going to convince me and the rest of the world something, that he exists, for example, he could do it at any time. He would be God, right? Like, he would know how to accomplish all of that. He wouldn't leave it in the hands of fallible people thousands of years ago to write a book of all things
yeah,
to
yeah,
convey his thoughts. And then these thoughts are so confusing because we've already got over 6,000 plus denominations of the same religion interpreting these words of God
yeah,
in so many different ways. It's like, this is not evidence for God. This is evidence for people writing about things that they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
yeah,
It's just, it's amazing. And
yeah.
and ironically, there's this mystic out here. I don't know if you're familiar with him. His name is Sadhguru. He's a Hindu mystic, right? And he's an
That,
atheist. And
that
he
name sounds
says,
familiar.
inside Guru's thing, which one thing that he says, I believe, is that he says people should be comfortable with the words, I don't know.
Yes.
He goes, nobody knows whether there's a God because God has not revealed himself to anyone. And so why believe in things you don't know are true? You know? And that's the one thing that I think makes a lot of sense. Why
What's his name?
Sadhguru, I think it's SAD GURU. Let me make sure I spell that
Yeah,
right.
no,
Uh,
I came
Actually,
up.
it's
So
SAHD.
yeah,
I'll
yep,
share
that's what
my
I thought it
screen.
was.
Yeah, that
No, I
guy.
found him. Yeah,
Yep.
I like him.
Yeah,
He
he
says
says,
some
"I don't know" holds a tremendous
yeah
possibility, and that's
yeah
true.
it's fun. So he's I didn't I assumed that he was an atheist, but his
Yeah,
garb
he
and
says,
mannerisms made me assume he was Hindu. But yeah, he says some very profound things, and he's a funny guy too.
yeah, he's real
I like
funny.
him.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like
But
and he calls himself spiritual. It's like his language of
yeah,
conveying, but I think what he is he's just trying to reach people's humility and say, look, man, you don't know everything, and it's okay. It's
yeah,
okay. You don't have to cling to these old beliefs. You'll never grow. You'll never evolve if you just know everything. People who know everything can't learn anything, and I believe that 100%.
well, that was a perfect line. I and Avatar, the first one. I
Hmm.
love the line, "You can't fill a cup that's already full."
That's right. That's right. And see, people like Alejandro, they know everything.
Yeah,
And that's what makes it
yep,
very hard to communicate ideas and concepts and get them to even understand where you're coming from,
yeah,
because they assume they know your thinking. They assume that,
yeah, yeah,
oh, you
yeah. Oh yeah,
you hate
I've
God.
heard all your atheist talking points so many times before. It's like, dude, what do you think you're doing? It's like
Exactly.
I agree. That's the same atheist talking points because it's the same theistic talking points.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah,
respond to the same arguments the same way. Like, what's wrong with sticking to your guns? Like, until you show me that this talking point doesn't make sense, that it's not addressing the argument you're making, then we have no choice but to stick to it. You have to stay to, you know, don't let them off the hook, but people feel like, I had a conversation with a Catholic not long ago, and he was like saying, well, you're just making the same old tired the moral argument. You're just making that. When you guys going to come up with something new? It's like, when you decide to debunk the moral argument, then that's when
yeah,
we'll come up with something new if we have to. But until then, I'm just going to keep throwing it at you until you answer it. Yeah, well, I don't want to
I,
answer it because it's so old. It's getting old and boring. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't dispel anything. you know, if I don't see a washing machine in my back room and I need to get a washing machine, I'm going to keep talking about how I don't have a washing machine. I got to get one.
yeah.
It's just not going to go away because I'm tired of talking about it. I'm going to have to actually do something about it. It's just really weird. Yeah, man. So,
But
any,
I'm curious if he took off because he actually had to go somewhere or do something, or if he just like I'm not gonna get anywhere with this guy.
last time we had a conversation, um, he got he left. He got kind of stern with me at the very end because um he decided just no more, don't ask me
Yeah,
any more questions. I'm getting out of here. I got stuff I got to do. See you
yeah,
later. And he booked because the question was, um yeah, he said, we were talking about consciousness or something, and I was saying, well, I think consciousness, just because we don't understand consciousness doesn't mean therefore souls exist and gods exist. It means we don't know everything about consciousness, right? And that just opens up the door to learn more. And he was
yeah,
like, no, 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 the soul explains everything. I was like, really? It explains everything? He's like, yeah, like you can't tell me what consciousness is made of. And I'm like, I could give it a shot, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But let me ask you this: what is the soul made of? And he says, well, the soul is made of the same thing that truth is made of, and
yeah,
concepts. And I said, all right, so imagination, soul is made of imagination. No, no, it's made of an abstraction.
yeah,
I was like, well, abstraction is in the category of imagination. I promise you. Like, I pulled the dictionary definition. It's imaginary. It's an imaginary basis for labeling things. right? I said, so you're telling me that the soul is made out of imagination? He goes, that's it, man. I'm gone. I'm not going to sit here and keep talking about this. I'm not.
Because
I just feel like I'm repeating myself.
well, he ran out of ammo.
Yeah, he ran out of
Right.
ammo. He didn't. I'm like, why can't you admit that abstractions are? You're talking about imagination. I mean, I'm not making this up. I'm going by what you telling me. You're telling me this. I'm not the one claiming that the soul is made of imagination. You are. And I'm just asking
Well,
you for clarification.
he kept using analogies, and then I would add my own version of an analogy, and he'd be like, analogies aren't perfect. I'm just using them to make you understand. Like, I understand what an analogy is. I understand what you're trying to say. I'm just telling you that your analogy is crap.
Yeah, right. Well, here was an analogy when he was saying that people who believe in God are more moral than those who don't believe in God. So I said, if a guy, let's say you got two guys, guy A walks in the bank, he notices there's cameras all over the wall looking at him. Then the guy in front of him drops $100 bill on the ground. He looks at the camera and he knows they're on. So he picks the $100 up and says, "Hey man, you dropped your money," because he knew he was being watched by the cameras.
Yeah.
Then you've got guy number B, letter B, no cameras. He already knows there's nobody watching, and he sees the guy drop $100 on the ground, and he picks it up and he says, "Hey man, here, you dropped $100. Who do you think would be the more moral of those two people?" And he says, "Oh, person A." What sense does that make? I don't
The
get it.
God sense makes the God
Yeah,
sense.
makes God
People are
sense, I
more.
guess.
Well, he is saying, people are only moral because of God. And I said, so the Crusades, that was a moral. They were completely moral people. He goes, oh, so now you're pro-Muslim. Like,
Oh God. Yeah, he tends to do that. He called me a solipsist
yeah,
because
like,
he said, well, why don't you believe in when people say they have experiences of God, why don't you believe that therefore God is true? I said, because that's their experience. It's not my experience. And he goes, oh, you're a solipsist. You only think your experience exists. Okay, we're
yeah,
done. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not a solipsist. If I was a solipsist, I would think I'm talking to myself right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
which would
No,
be
I know.
insane.
Yeah, no, he pulled that on me too.
Oh, really? He called you a solipsist?
Well, I don't know if he called me that, but he brought up that's just solipsism.
Yeah, I don't know
Like
what it is. He
you
thinks
got
that's
all
a
these words that
defeater.
you want to get. Yeah, it's like you have all these words you want to get in because you're a philosophy. You're a philosopher. You're not. I wanted to say you just think about things too much.
Yeah, you may think way too much. It's like
I think, man, I thought too much.
it's like I called him on it last time we were speaking. Like we were talking about free will. He goes, well, we have free will and therefore God, because under your view, there can be no free will because under naturalism, there couldn't be no free will because science says there's no free will. So we know that can't be true because then there would be no free will. So therefore, God's true,
Yeah,
right? And I was like, well, you're kind of smuggling in free will as if it's something I should agree to. You're acting like it's a defeater. Like,
yeah,
oh, I forgot we do have free will. Therefore, yeah, I'm wrong. You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Like,
No,
who
he
number
kept doing
one?
that to me too.
Yeah, it's like number one, we haven't established what you mean by free will. Number one, we might be talking past each other. And whether whichever version you go along with, we haven't any proof that that's true. But number two, who says that under naturalism there can be no free will? Like, if it's true, then it would just be another natural phenomenon in nature. Like, where's the contradiction in that? Because there's a lot of atheists, there's a lot of naturalists that do believe in some versions of free will,
Yeah,
right? Like you, I think you said that
yeah,
you kind of believe that
yeah,
some kind of free will. So do I. That doesn't mean that therefore we must believe in God. And he's like, well, if you believe in free will even a little bit, you're already saying you believe in God. So
Yeah.
you're kind of contradicting yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
You kept doing that to me too.
you don't get to tell me what I believe.
here's where I left him on free will. So God
Yeah.
gave us free will. I can either choose God or I'm choosing this. And he goes, yes, and you're making the wrong choice. Like, and said, that's why I don't believe in God, because I don't think this is a choice. I'm just,
Yeah. It's not a choice for a lot of people.
the whole Pascal's wager is like, better safe than sorry, better safe than sorry. Like, better safe from what? God, I mean, God seems like the only thing that I'm in danger of.
Yeah. And which God? Because maybe if you believe in the wrong God, the real God's going to get mad.
Yeah. Well, that's what I brought up. God must love atheists, or God probably loves atheists, because we haven't decided on which God to believe in. Like, see, you believe in God. Like,
oh, you missed the whole analogy. Thought experiments. It's a way of conveying ideas, but see, those are just deflection tactics. They're ways of not dealing with.
He's so completely convinced that he is smarter than everyone else he talks to.
Mm-hmm.
He's completely convinced.
Yeah.
And that,
well, he called into the Atheist Experience a couple times and got on Matt Dillahunty's nerves doing that stuff. And I think his argument was, he asked Matt, he goes, I'll prove there's a God. He goes, is there a tree? Is there a tallest tree? And Matt was like, what the hell does that mean? And he goes, no, is there a tree? Is there a tallest tree? And he goes, maybe there is. He goes, right. Therefore, God. End of story.
Yeah.
And then they were like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
He goes, God is the maximally great thing. And then I think Matt was saying, well, what's the greatest pizza? Is it pineapple pizza or pepperoni pizza? What's greater? Is God the greatest axe murderer? Is he the greatest fornicator? Like, isn't greatness a value, and values are subjective? So you're saying that God is subjective? It's like he twisting them up in logical knots there, and Alejandro's just going to do what he does. And well, I'm just going to hang up now because you guys just failed to understand,
Yeah, that's his go-to. You failed to understand.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're failing to explain it very well.
Yeah, I saw that part. You're like, you haven't said anything yet. Well, what about Victor?
Then you're not doing.
Well, I saw Victor pop in.
He was having some audio issues because he's using just the phone speaker, and the noise canceling was canceling him out.
Oh.
So he couldn't. It kept cutting out, and so he got off thinking he could get right back on, but you were gone. So
yeah. Well, me and Victor had a debate 2 years ago, like on one of these atheist channels. And I don't know if you're familiar with some of the atheist personalities out there, like Ozzy. And
I used to be very involved. I used to go to a lot of conferences. I knew Matt and Seth and Aaron, and I knew everybody.
Oh,
but I haven't been involved. I had
well, I was
right around
when
David Silverman got kicked out of American Atheists, and I got in it with Matt Dillahunty, and he got all pissed off at me and blocked me and unfriended me and and was kind of rude.
Yeah, he does kind of.
Well, he has very strong feelings about David Silverman, which most people do. But I was not so much defending David Silverman as I was, what's the word I want to use? Not disparaging, but the way the American atheists handled the whole thing was very suspect, and I thought it was very just like that's kind of fucked up. And Matt's like, you don't know what David did. You don't know what kind of person he is. Like, yeah, but I'm not talking about David. I mean, I think David got a raw deal no matter what he did. Yeah, he probably should have gotten fired, but the way they did it was completely effed up because they knew David was the draw to the conference. So they didn't say anything until after the conference. What's that sound like? Sounds like the Catholic Church not saying anything about priests.
Right. That's what I noticed.
And-
Like, they get very
Matt took issue with
political. Yeah, I think they had one guy on that created a big stir. I think is not Cosmic Skeptic, but Rational something. I forget his name now, but he was from the UK, and he came out on his channel, and he had been guest on the Atheist Experience a number of times. And then he said something about he was questioning the trans issue. Like, you know, he was saying, you know, we talk a lot about beliefs and imagination versus reality. So I just have a few questions about some people who claim that their, you know, their gender is this when their sex is that, and how does that really add up to truth statements? And he was just going into a philosophical, you know, exploration on it through his video. And he didn't even, I don't think he even came to a conclusion. I think he was just kind of talking about it in a very critical way, like being skeptical. And he was just trying to be consistent. Like he was saying, well, if I'm going to be skeptical about these claims, then it seems like this set of claims also deserves to be looked at with a skeptical eye. Not that I'm saying I know the answer, but I just wonder about this thing. And he had like bullet points. And man, the Atheist Experience found out about his video, and because they're so, you know, very progressive in their politics and pro trans people and pro, you know, LGBTQ and all of that, they felt offended by it, and they didn't ever want him back on the show again. And his whole thing was, look, this video was done on my platform. It has nothing to do with atheism. Atheism is just about God claims. It has nothing to do about transgender or politics or anything like that. I didn't think this would have anything to do with the atheist platform or topic. And Matt Dillahunty got on and just went like raving lunatic about it. And so I guess he got kind of kicked out or whatever.
And was this, well, I think like my issue with Matt, not so much I should say Matt's issue with me. One, I think he had grown in popularity a little bit too fast and too big, and he couldn't handle it. And then his wife left for Beth for some, and I didn't realize that, and I think that really fucked him up, and I think he lost his mind for a while.
Really, yeah.
So
I think he had cancer, or he was having some kind of medical issue.
Well,
or
he had some health issues. I know. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah,
and
he had a lot going on, and the whole safe spaces and not political correctness, but just the whole social justice warrior thing.
Yeah, identity politics.
Just got too wackadoo. Like with Skepticon, they were spending all their money trying to sue David. No, Richard. What, I can't remember. Guy with curly hair and glasses. Richard. Anyways, he's a player. I mean, he would hit on everybody. I mean, he was just. Anyways, one of the not leaders, but the organizers of Skepticon was one of the people that he hooked up with. And then he hooked up with somebody else, and she got pissed off. And decided to go after him for being, inappropriate. And they're spending all this money on trying to sue, get him out and do, attack him. And they're like, we need money.
Like, yeah. Oh God, that's
quit spending it on your own personal vendetta. So I stopped
Yeah,
going to conferences and just kind of like it's getting too
it becomes like a church or a cult.
yeah
It's
yeah.
it's like I've learned a lot from Matt
It
Dillahunty
stopped being
watching his
fun.
videos. Stop being
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, like when it comes to some of his logical, like he's got videos on logical fallacies, and he's got videos on just epistemology, and I find a lot of value in that. But on the other hand, I notice he has he's kind of out of control emotionally. He's very emotional. Like
Yes.
when people disagree with him on on his show, he just cuts them
Yes.
off and cusses them out and hangs
Yeah.
up on them. And I just
Yeah.
find it's not very fun. It's kind of stupid, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And
And
that all sort of happened like 4 years ago.
mhm,
And
it
basically
got
with
worse and worse and worse as
yeah
time went on. I
yeah
noticed that
yeah.
gradual, you know.
And I think it's the problem with what Matt is doing and what Seth is doing. They're making their job preaching atheism.
Mhm.
Now, Aaron Raw, he's a science educator. He's doing all kinds of different things
Mhm.
because Seth and Matt were like just super tight. They're like I forget what they used to call themselves, but they were a really tight group.
Yeah.
But Seth is still entertaining,
Yeah.
but that's their livelihood
Yeah.
is
Of
atheism.
course. Of
So
course.
that makes them not much different than preachers.
Yeah,
When you're making your living
exactly.
at trying to convince people of something, that's it's it's less about educating and more
And
about this is my job, so you have to believe what I'm telling you.
that's and for anyone who's seriously looking at stuff like epistemology and finding truth, that stuff kind of gets boring after a while, because it's like, I can't trust you, because you're going to say whatever you have to just to stay on your mission. Your agenda has to survive, and
Richard
so it
Carrier.
becomes less. Yeah, it's like the thing about YouTube, when people do stuff and preach stuff, especially if they got all these followers and stuff. I don't trust it
Yeah,
necessarily, because look, these guys are getting paid to say this stuff. They're
yeah.
they're not in it
Their
to
their
have a
their
real
income is
discussion.
reliant. Yeah,
Yeah, like me, I have very small. I don't do this for followers at all. I only got like what 50 followers or whatever, and I don't care. I do this for fun, just to meet people and talk to about stuff, and but there's people that they make, like you said, they make a living out of it. And I think I have a friend named T Jump, and he's got a channel. He made like lots and lots and lots of followers. And one of the charges against him was, one of the religious people was like, well, the thing is, I don't know if you're really sincere, because you've got all these followers. I think that you just don't want religion to be true or whatever. And he was like, no, actually, I want Christians to survive, because that's how I make my money,
yeah.
arguing with you guys. If we just refute you guys, you'll all go away, and then I'll have no platform anymore. So I need you guys to keep staying strong, man.
Yeah.
Keep coming up with
And
more
and
stuff.
and
Like,
it's and it's then it's more about entertainment than anything else.
yeah, and at least T Jump will admit it. Like he'll say,
Yeah,
look, this, you guys get mad at me because I get, we get real confrontational, but this drives up my viewership. This is what
yeah.
people like to see. So, and then people hate that, and they're like, yeah, but are we really having a sincere conversation? And he's like, who gives a shit? Like, you
Who are you
get to
talking
say
about?
what you, T Jump. His name is Tom Jump. He's got a channel called
Yeah, okay,
T Jump.
I know that name, but I'm thinking of TJ. I think TJ, that
He
guy
has
with
a different
crooked teeth.
he has a different guy.
But
T
he
Jump.
was super big. Oh, he was something atheist, but he was real big back about 2013 through
Oh
2016,
yeah.
and he
Yeah,
kind of
man.
went wackadoo.
Yeah, T Jump
Scathing
is
atheist, I think. No,
T Jump is like undefeated, man. That dude, it's like he rips theists apart like it's so quick, and he talks real fast. So he
yeah,
he gets his points in, and he's real short, which theists hate those short questions and short
yeah,
answers. He's like, "Well, how do you know blah blah?" And he's like, "Because blah 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 blah." Now, and then they're like, like it stumps him because he's
yeah,
real smart and he's real concise. And I kind of learned a lot from him too, as far as debating stuff. But now I've kind of gotten a little bit away from debating so much, and I'm more interested in just having conversations and trying to meet
yeah,
people where they're at, and just understand each other. Because I kind of realized that it's not really healthy for me to get too wrapped up in my ego to where I feel like I want to win this game or whatever. I mean, it's
yeah.
fun. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes it is fun,
Oh
but
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'm
Anything
always
gets bored.
entertained to see how long they last, because
Yeah.
they always. Because I'm tenacious. I will never give up,
Yeah.
and they always give up. I just always see how long before they're like, okay, I've had enough.
I've had enough. That's what I like. Like,
And I'm like, it's like if you were right, you would keep fighting. I mean, your job is to convince me. So I'm like,
right. That's the whole thing. Like, the chess game doesn't end until somebody wins. So let's keep it going. And some people
what is it
just,
called when you lay down your queen?
I don't know.
There's a word for it. It's like submission or whatever, but it's that's they always do it. They I've never had to bail on a discussion. They've always failed first.
Have you ever
And
heard of
like, am I bad? Am I being mean to them? I mean,
no,
because
it's
you'll notice I'm always laughing. I'm always smiling. I'm always like, I'm pretty
hmm
jovial in these conversations. I
right.
mean, people always comment, it's like, you're always smiling. You're like, you're
Yeah, it doesn't have to
like,
be
because
that
it's,
serious.
yeah, because to me, it's not serious. Like, you're arguing atheism is wrong. Like, atheism doesn't exist. You're the reason why I'm an atheist. You say God's real. I say, yeah, I don't believe you. I'm an atheist. If you were telling me God is real, I'm not an atheist. It's like how to prove atheism is wrong. Like, I don't believe you. That's what atheism is.
That's right.
The only way to prove it wrong is to somehow prove that I do believe you.
Exactly. Well, look, there's a guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Darth Dawkins.
Yeah, yeah.
You know him.
I think I've been on with both those guys at some point.
Oh, Darth Dawkins. Well, he debated T Jump, and I'll just play a little clip of it just to give you a piece of it because it's hilarious. Hold on just a second.
Face. You are a deceitful scumbag.
Now,
Is there
answer the question.
something? Stop over talking me. And I'm going to call you out to your face because you are a
That's
scumbag.
great. You
Okay?
keep
I
repeating the
asked you
same
the
gibberish.
question. I asked you the question. You are a scumbag. Okay.
Did you mute him? Because I got to
You are a scumbag. I will
Mute,
ask
please.
the question again.
mute him.
Okay. All you're
Mute
simply
Darth,
doing
please.
is
Mute Darth,
mute
please.
his microphone. Mute
Darth, please.
this guy's microphone.
Mute him so I can
Mute
ask the
his
question.
microphone.
So yeah, I'll give a introduction.
Okay, you get started, and then Darth will follow up with his.
So as far as I know, Darth's position is that you can't justify logic, rationality, reason, etc., without appealing to a god. And I'm going to say yes, you can. And there's several ways to do that. In philosophy, the classical way is to start with I think, therefore I am, I exist. And then the fact that I exist, I'm a part of this reality thing. And reality is reality, so that gives us the law of identity. So we can just ground the law of logic purely based off of the fact I exist. And we know there's one reality, or at least one reality, or one of me. And so we can ground math off of the same thing. I think, therefore I am. So we can ground logic and math and rationality all purely just based off I think, therefore I am. We don't need any appeal to a god at all. And that does give us a connection to the fundamental nature of reality because, that is some connection to the fundamental nature of reality. But there's a second part is that if you think you need to appeal to the fundamental nature of reality to ground rationality, the atheists can just make up a kind of a god just like theists do. We could say it's grounded in naturalistic pantheism, which is just an eternal, all-powerful nature with no consciousness. So it's essentially just the God without the mind, and we can say there's just a law of nature that gives us rationality, and it's just the awesomeness law, and it's the greatest possible imaginable awesomeness law or whatever. And we can just make up a equivalent to the God hypothesis just under naturalism. And so we can ground logic and rationality purely based off of I think therefore I am, or we can ground it off of just the fact that nature exists or some law of nature. Either one of those gives us a better ground than theism. And the theism one doesn't work because it's essentially just an assertion that God has a nature that would give us correct rationality. And it could just be the case that he wouldn't. He would just give us irrationality. There could be an evil God, essentially. And so simply just defining God as a being that would give us the correct kind of rationality, but we can just do the same thing and just say nature has a law that is just by definition the law that would give us a kind of rationality. So any justification used in presuppositionalism can be matched equally under atheism. And the reason we don't do that is because that methodology doesn't work. The real way to ground rationality is just based off I think therefore I am. And that'll conclude my opening.
When you say I think therefore I am, are you making a statement of fact?
Yes.
Okay, what is the context in which that fact exists?
Reality, I think. Could you clarify?
What's that? What is that?
The stuff that exists. Not sure what you mean.
What is the context within which I think exists? What is it? You said reality. What is that? Excuse me.
I'd go with I can then go with the naturalistic pantheism. It's just like eternal, all-powerful nature, matter and energy and motion.
No, listen, dude, I've listened to enough of your debates. I find it really
I'm
pathetic
trying to answer your
that you
question. I'm
keep
not
on
sure what you
offering.
mean.
Please do not overtalk me. Okay.
Okay. Are you there? I can't hear you.
Go ahead, T-Jump.
Well, no, I wanted to hear what Darth had to say. Is he still there? Did he stop talking?
Yeah. Why was I muted?
So yeah, I was just trying to understand what Darth's position
Why was I muted?
Stop. I was confused. All right. There was people over talking. I didn't know what was going on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was speaking and then I got muted.
Okay. I apologize for that. Go ahead, Darth. What were you saying?
I've heard you make up stuff all the time. It could be this, it could be this, that, whatever. I'm not really interested in your
Still trying to figure out what he wants to say.
I want to know what the
that's what it was.
context of I thinking is as a fact. Do you believe that fact? I'll explain it to you. Do you believe that a fact can be invoked as actual and intelligible without context?
I'm not sure what that means. So when I say a fact is something that is true because it corresponds to reality. I don't know what you mean by context.
Okay. In order for something to be a fact, does it require ontological context?
You mean correspond to reality? Because I would say yes. Is that what you mean by context?
No, I'm just saying context. Okay. Is there a context? Is there a context in which a fact exists? Or is there no context that the fact that you're invoking is existing?
I don't know what that means. I would say that a fact is true if it corresponds to reality. So I would say
you're not addressing my question. Okay.
I don't know how to. I don't know what
does a fact. You don't know what context means?
Not context.
Alejandro.
When I say
context of what you're saying.
Don't play dumb.
Not playing dumb. I literally do not know what you mean by context.
Well, context means the ontological framework from which a fact exists in.
So yeah, that's Darth Dawkins and T-Jump.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of, you know, and it's so funny how these preachers, there's so much about Jesus and love, but they're so fucking rude, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
You know,
and they're very quick to say, you know, are you stupid? Are you not understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Like, no, because what you're saying makes no sense. I'm not stupid. You're saying is
it's stupid.
If I can't understand what you're saying, you're the one that's being stupid because you obviously.
Yeah, it's like they like to say atheists are very arrogant and stuff, but it seems like they're the ones that look down on people. They're the ones that are so condescending.
Yeah. You can't get any more arrogant than to claim that you were specially created by the creator of the universe. That is
Yeah.
the epitome of arrogance. I
Yeah.
exist because God made me.
Yeah.
Aren't I special?
Special. Me. Yeah. Jesus died for me.
God, yeah.
You know, I feel you, man. That's what that's why, you
I
know,
exist because God had a plan.
yeah.
Like,
And
well,
I was
it
part
means
of it.
it means I exist too. I mean, you know, that's a fucked up plan. If you like, I got to make all these atheists who can argue with all my chosen people.
Yeah. It's almost like, well, in that case, we kind of need each other, right?
Yeah,
You should be glad I exist because without me, you
I
wouldn't
mean,
have nothing to argue about.
it is almost comical because this is especially true with Christians. I mean, they're like, you know, ours. You cannot disprove Christianity. Christianity is true. Like, and I don't even know what that means. Christianity. It's like you have a church. I guess it's true. I mean, how do you disprove Christianity? I mean, just it's a belief. Um, but this arrogant notion that, you know, ours is the one true religion, and like, so your God created a bunch of other religions to give you somebody to argue with. I'm like, what was your God's plan? That, you know,
But your religion is true, man.
and
How
and why
convenient.
did and why did your God trick these other people into thinking he was a different God, and it was their God, but, you know, wanted them to do different stuff?
Yeah, it's like it's a test, you know. It's a big test, you know.
Yeah.
And and they don't even think about this stuff. Are you
Oh no.
familiar with street epistemology?
Oh yeah. I've been applauded so many times by being the one person, you know, somebody will be on the street corner going it, and I'll talk them off their corner.
Yeah.
I'll make them give up, and be like, "Thank you, you wouldn't shut up." Went to go see Richard Dawkins talk, and outside the theater, so, you know, guy was doing that, and of course, all these, you know, atheists are all lined up, and this guy's
Hmm.
just with his megaphone. And I
Yeah.
go over there, so I talked to him for about 10 minutes, and he's like, he just packed up and left. We're like, "Yay!"
Yay! That happened to me 2 weekends ago. I went to go to a we were supposed to go to a bar and shoot pool with some friends, and we were late getting they were late getting there, so I was just hanging out outside of the bar, and there was this street preacher who had a whole block cordoned off downtown, and he had like this big speaker and a microphone, and he had all these people lined up to argue with him, like other religious people they were just making all this noise. And finally I got up there and I just started doing street epistemology, man, and he just fucking yanked the microphone out of the speaker and wouldn't let me talk anymore because I was asking him really deep stuff. I was like, basically, essentially got to, so basically, you believe the Bible is true because it says so right there in the Bible. He was like, yeah. And I'm like, well, how do you know that you were right to think that the Bible was right? And he was like, yeah, you know, I don't think this conversation's going anywhere. Let me
Yeah.
just give me my microphone back. And everybody started clapping. Finally, he left. It was so funny. But
It,
yeah, that
it's usually pretty easy to disarm them because most of the time they're just looking for attention. They
mhm.
they haven't really thought through what they're talking about. They're just they're just quoting the Bible and just blindly. And there was one time, and I was with a friend of mine. He's like, "Don't engage him. Don't engage him. Don't engage him." Like, I just want to say one thing, and he was saying basically about, you know, how, you know, I forget what verse, but basically it was a verse that's saying, you know, women need to um, do whatever the
Be
man
quiet.
says.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I walked up to his wife. I said,
yeah.
"So, is this what he tells you at home?" And he's like, "Don't talk to my wife." And he's getting all mad at me, like, "See, you're telling me, you know, g- woman's got to submit to the man. I'm just curious if, you know, if she submits to you."
Yeah. Yeah. The proof is in the pudding, buddy. Of
But she's
course.
like, he's just talking. Which was the
That's
funniest thing, because
hilarious.
she was like, she was there, but she's all Jesus, and Jill's like, so you submit to him, and she's like,
Not
he's
really.
just talking.
He's got to say that.
and he was like, go doctor.
Yeah, of
And he's like
course.
yelling at me with his megaphone. I'm like, don't use that megaphone on me. I'm standing right here.
Yeah, they are ridiculous, man. I wish Victor could have stayed on. Victor is a funny guy. We had a debate, and
Well, had
oddly
you
enough,
not have to leave, he probably would have tried again. But once he
yeah,
disconnected, he couldn't get back on.
yeah, he'll
But
be on next time. He went into. There's another guy I watch. I don't know if you're familiar with Pine Creek. I just showed one of his videos. Are you familiar with Pine Creek? He does street epistemology on his YouTube channel, and he's very entertaining. He's really funny. And what he does is he's kind of like this. He has a call-in show, and he wants Christians to call him and talk about stuff. And I got Victor to call him, and so Victor got on the show. And let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Are you free for a few minutes?
me?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
gonna see if I can find this actually, because you know what, it might be hard.
Yeah, I thought my daughter was going to come over earlier, but
Uh,
her mother works. Well, her mother doesn't speak to me, so she has really all
oh
the
yeah,
information through my daughter.
right,
And she doesn't really talk to my daughter either.
right,
so
right.
so my daughter's having to figure out what's going on, and then tell me.
Oh, that's tough.
But she didn't show up, so I'm guessing her mom didn't have to work. Because I asked her mom would talk to me, so I have to ask my daughter. And she's like, I don't know. Well, ask your mother. She's not going to tell me. Like, what do you mean she's not going to tell you? Like,
Right.
this is a secret? She doesn't know. She doesn't know if she's going to work?
Like, sure. Yeah, that might be
and
hard to find that video, so I might skip that part. But
and she wonders why we didn't work out.
yeah,
But I don't know if you know why why my wife left.
Mm-mm.
So her father committed suicide in a very ugly way.
Mm.
And then she had a miscarriage, and
Uh-huh.
she wasn't coping. And she was getting into church because she had a child, which it's amazing how many women get into church, who don't go to church at all. Then they have a child, then they start going to church.
Mm-hmm.
So I encouraged her to, go talk to the priest, because she didn't want to go talk to anybody. I was like, well, I'll go talk to the priest. And the priest got moved to a bigger, fancier church. So she started going to that church up in Des Plaines, which is like an hour away.
Mm.
And she got hooked up with a youth group, like 30 and under group.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, at the time, she's 45.
Wow.
Well, she gets involved in this group, and they invite her to a church retreat. She comes back from it and said, God talked to me and says I can't be with you anymore. I was like, oh, really? Imagine that.
Yeah. Oh man, that is wild.
It was one of the few times where I just let her talk, because I was just like, really? That's what you're going with?
Man, I always say, kind of like on that same topic, I always say, I think women bring people to church more than Jesus does.
Oh yeah,
Because
definitely.
when I was a preacher in my congregation, the only reason the guys were there were because their freaking
Yeah,
wives made
yeah.
them go.
I mean,
I mean,
I
they
used
could
to go to
care
church
less.
with her. Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to go to church with her because it was entertaining. I mean, the funniest thing at the church because I would talk to the priest all the time. But one sermon, the priest is going, if you've been baptized, then you're qualified to preach. And
Mhm.
she immediately turns to me and is like, no, you are not.
Not him.
I was like, but you just said I could. I was
Yeah.
baptized. I'm qualified.
That's right.
But
That's right.
the reason she wanted to get a divorce, this is legitimately one of the reasons she said that she had to end the marriage,
Mhm.
is because she could not take communion being married to an atheist. And
Mm.
I asked the priest, and he confirmed that because she was married to an atheist, she couldn't take communion, which is a bullshit rule. And
Yeah.
that particular church, that's how they did that particular church, the Mexican church. My wife's Mexican, and I'm like, you can't drink the grape juice and paper cracker. That's what. Like, okay. So after she left, because we're still married, we haven't gotten
Yeah.
divorced, because But as soon as she left, she started taking communion. She's like, "Well, I
But you're
left. So
still
that's close enough." Uh-oh, you froze. Are you locked out? I don't know if you can hear me, but you are frozen. I'll give you a minute. So clock ticking. But holy cow, it's been 3.5 hours. I should probably go anyhow. Yeah, I'm gonna give you another minute. I don't know if you can hear me. Text me if you can. I got your number, right? Where are you at? Oh, you're gone now. Well, comment, it's been 3.5 hours, so we should probably quit anyhow. Nice background, though. We the people.